Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show!
No.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of delicious things with microphones because I'm a ring announcer and a cage announcer. I wish it was just one word for the both of them. And I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two co-hosts, both of whom bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing to you first, from New York, Mark Priaulx.
I miss that voice of Bob back in the days when we used to actually win baseball games instead of do nothing at the trade deadline. But anyway, I digress. What's up? We're back. Don't have a lot of exciting things to say. Omar was just asking me as we came on, as you heard me say no as the show opened, if I've seen the Mario movie with my kids yet, but I have not. But I do think I'm going to bring at least the older one to see this Ninja Turtles movie that's coming out because it looks like it's pretty fun.
You already know your boy's going tomorrow. You already know. You already know.
There's another new Ninja Turtles movie?
This fucking guy
Animated
lives under a rock.
Not like the incredible one from when we were kids that was like...
Oh my god, those were so good.
Yeah, no, that's...
with the
that's
bodysuits.
It's a classic.
The first one is incredible. The second one's all right, and then the third one was trash, if I recall. But the first one's incredible.
The second one is legendary, my good sir.
Oh, the first one's so much better.
Legendary.
Wait. Jog my memory.
The addition of Kino.
Which one was the second one? Where were they?
We're getting off the rails here, but it's Secret of the Ooze. This is where we found out exactly how the Turtles actually turned into the Ninja Turtles, how they mutated, and the origin of such ooze. And then that same ooze mutated even more animals by the Shredder, and then you had mutant on mutant action. And then you had Vanilla Ice singing the fucking soundtrack. Come on, dog.
It was so much cheesier, the second one.
It was.
The first one was like borderline, like this is a real movie. Like it was like
okay. I will give you that. The first one was had a little bit more drama to it. There was a little bit more like the pace was a little bit slower. There was that thing with Raph and Leo and you know, I get you.
Yes,
I get you.
Yeah.
But the second one, listen, Kevin Nash as Super Shredder at the very end. Come on, dog.
Kevin Nash, the wrestler?
Yes.
God, I can't even remember that it was.
He was a Super Shredder?
The wrestler was. He was the very last Shredder at the end when Shredder mutated.
I never rewatched the second one, whereas me and Lucas have watched the first one like 20 times.
I could recite the second movie to you right now.
Oh my god, that was
crime wave is sweeping across New York City.
Yep. It's a great movie.
He is very tall, Kevin Nash.
Really have digressed.
He was the Super Shredder.
You don't think I'm making a clip out of this one?
I never knew that. I never knew that. All right. Let's get this.
We're going to get all the Ninja Turtle fans to come check out our MMA podcast.
Already derailed this, man. All right. Introducing in Florida, Omar Arjola. He's the Nicaraguan Nightmare. Say hi, buddy. Awesome. Let's go.
I am
on
also
this show
going to see the Ninja Turtles.
Okay,
Let's go.
Yes, as we have established. I saw Oppenheimer the other night. Okay, we're not going to get into that, though. We're not. We're not getting into Oppenheimer.
All right, but tell me how it was, at least. Was it good?
It was.
It
was
was
heavy. It's a heavy movie.
Obviously it's very heavy. I will say this. No spoilers. I mean, it's not like you know what's going to fucking happen. Like, they succeed in making the bomb. And you know who they drop it on. But the movie is less about the bomb. It's really it truly is a biopic. Like, it follows his life and his journey. And the cast is so deep.
Biopic?
A biopic. You never heard of a biopic?
I've heard of a biopic.
Is that how you pronounce it?
To my knowledge.
I don't know. I got no skin in this game.
Anyhow, what's the guy's name? Cillian Murphy's performance is it's very Daniel Day-Lewis like. Like, this is his masterpiece of his career. He's on screen for like 3 hours, like the whole time, and it is just masterful. Like, you're just watching a master in his craft. His performance alone is worth going to see it. So, yeah. Okay.
He's fantastic. I love him as an actor.
He's great, man.
Even Robert Downey Jr. was really fucking good in that movie, to be honest.
Yeah, really great. I appreciated how Robert Downey Jr. tuned down a little bit his Robert Downey Jr.-ness to like act this role.
Oh yeah, it was real acting. Like, he wasn't playing a version of himself. This was really him like playing somebody, and it was great. He really lived up to the task. I thought he was really good.
Okay. This
All right, should we do a little MMA?
We do MMA.
Folks.
We do it. Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
As promised, we are going to get back to MMA. We're going to talk about all the fights from this past weekend's awesome pay-per-view, UFC Fight Night, UFC 291, Poirier versus Gaethje. We're going to throw a number of these fights into our lightning round. We're going to find out who rose and who fell in Mark's very own rankings system that we call the Priaulx Rankings, after him. It is his brainchild. We're also going to recap a little bit of that Bellator versus Rizin 2 card. We're going to find out what's new. What's news inside the MMA sphere. We should call it and new news. And new and news. No, that's terrible. Scratch it. I take it back. Then we're going to look ahead.
Maybe we shouldn't.
We're going to look ahead to this weekend's PFL playoffs, featherweights, and light heavyweights, and this weekend's UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Font, a very nice Fight Night card. And then we might end with a little bit of trivia. Before we get into any fight talk, gentlemen, let us first thank our audience. Let us address our audience. Dear audience, if you're watching this right now on YouTube, thank you so much. Drop us a comment below. It's our favorite form of engagement. If you like any of our takes, let us know. If you disagree with our takes, we want to hear your takes down in the comments. As always, keep it classy. If you want audio only, we've got you there. You can find us wherever you get those podcasts. And of course, we're on social media. You can find us on all the places, and new _ MMA show. Okay. Let us finally, after an hour of pop culture podcasting, talk about this. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Justin the Highlight Gaethje, who this past weekend, in front of 18,000 strong at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the main event of UFC 291, defeated Dustin the Diamond Poirier, exacting his revenge. Was once finished by Poirier a few years ago, now finishes Poirier by knockout with a unexpected head kick in the second round. The official time, 1 minute flat of round number 2. Mark, did you see a head kick knockout coming from Gaethje, and what were your impressions of the performances of both these men overall? Your take of the fight.
No, I did not. I said this to you guys already, but never did I imagine a scenario where Poirier got put out cold with one shot. But to be fair, all bets are off when it comes to a head kick, and that is what it took. But it's what Gaethje delivered. Clap it up for that, man. The BMF, what a win. It was fun while it lasted. The first round was awesome. It was like the perfect appetizer round of violence for the war that we all thought we were kind of settling in for. I thought Gaethje looked really noticeably good out of the gate. The first 3 minutes or so of that fight, I thought were all Gaethje. He was really measured, countering beautifully, landing the leg kicks. But Dustin wouldn't stop coming forward. He ends up landing those 2 big lefts. One of them really hit Gaethje clean in the eye, and you could tell Gaethje was feeling him. Then Dustin connects on a big right in an exchange. But then over the last minute or so, Gaethje kind of gets it back under control and reestablishes himself. So that round ends, and it's like, man, I'm not sure who took it. Like, there was some big shots. Feels like we have the makings of another potential classic, and Justin Gaethje was just not interested. Comes out in round 2, almost immediately connects with a head kick knockout for the record books. It's the same combo that we saw from Alex Caceres that I raved about on here, where he faked the right jab, threw the right head kick, and struck gold, man. I mean, couldn't have landed cleaner or heavier, and Dustin Poirier went out. He got the hand up, but it was a little too forward because of the fact that Gaethje threw that right jab first, and he had the hand up to block a jab, and obviously the head kick kind of wraps around that, and he didn't get the hand back in time, and he got caught. So Justin Gaethje gets it done. He gets his revenge on Justin. He gets the BMF title. He gets his undisputed title shot if he wants, or his Conor payday if he wants, which we'll get to. He gets everything, kind of. One perfect combination, and suddenly Justin Gaethje, the underdog coming into this fight, has it all. A legacy-establishing W for Justin Gaethje. And as much as I'm gutted for Dustin, I'm very happy for Justin.
100%. Omar, bringing you in here, what did you think of that technique that he threw, camouflaging that head kick with a little bit of was it a right straight? And give us your take of their performances overall, both of these fantastic, legendary lightweights.
Yeah, it was a right straight, right into a right kick. It's actually something that we've been working on at the gym lately. I'm not super great at it. There are guys who mask it a lot better and turn their hip over a lot better than I do when it comes to that specific technique. But the thing that's cool about it is that cross is not really meant to do anything but annoy you and kind of just like pester your face a bit. But it is in that moment that the opening for the kick comes. So it's a big deal. I can't remember if the Caceres. I feel like the Caceres one was almost a lead kick and not a rear kick like this one was. This one kind of gave me more Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman vibes. With the way the technique. Side, though. Yeah. Well, so was this one. This one was right.
Leon's was not same side. Leon's was a left
head kick
and a right head kick.
No, it was a left to a left head kick.
It was not. I'll bet you $1 million.
Well,
find the clip right now. I might be saying the sides backwards
because he's southpaw. He's southpaw, so I know it was different. But
I believe it was right paw to left head kick. Whatever it was not same side.
No, I think it was a left straight to a left head kick.
You guys want to bet?
All right. Let's. I don't, bro. I haven't even gotten paid yet. I can't do all that.
Yeah, I'm picturing.
No, it was left to left.
Yeah,
I should have bet.
Straight.
God damn it!
It was a left straight to a left.
It's
head kick.
not. I'm watching it right now.
So I just watched it too.
It's a right paw.
No, that's his left.
And then a left head kick. Oh, you're saying the way he extends the left hand?
Yes, that's the combo.
There. It's different than what Gaethje did.
And
that's why it's the combo. It's the same thing.
The same time he throws the left head kick.
That's why
the back punch is not supposed to actually.
Why are you did I just mute you?
The back punch is not supposed to like land. It's supposed to be there to distract you from the head kick. So it's the same technique. It's the same hand, same kick.
It's same time though, Leon.
Yeah.
Leon just reached with the left as he threw the left head kick. The paw was with the right.
But if you watch the way he throws kicks, though, if you watch the way he throws his kicks normally, he doesn't do that all the time. That's just not the way he throws a kick. So that is the setup, though. The setup is the right hand or the rear hand to the rear kick, whether you're southpaw or orthodox.
I think Gaethje's was more of a setup, personally. I'm not even.
I think we're splitting hairs.
Left hand.
I agree. I think Usman literally ducked into that kick because he was moving from the hand.
He was slipping.
That was the whole purpose. Yeah. He's slipping the left hand, and he ran his face into the left kick. It's the same thing. The timing might be a little bit different, and the way it looks might be a little bit different, but the technique is the same.
I thought the techniques were very similar, but Usman's looked worse because
what I said a little bit.
Usman was slipping
because he died. Yes,
Poirier was blocking, and it got kind of through / past the block.
Well, Poirier, if you go back and watch it, Poirier was blocking the hand and tried to get his hand up to block the kick before it, but the kick was he was too late at that point. That kick wrapped around his head. He was done at that point.
Do you know? Does this have a
your
name?
Your whole arm basically needs to be up to block.
Does this have a name when you do this, like a triangle with your arm kind of thing? Just boxing.
I don't think it has a name. It's just when I describe it to people, and I know it's a term that a lot of people hate using because it seems like it's overused, but I literally tell people to just answer the phone.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I explain it to people that don't know how to do it normally or don't really add it to their or haven't added it to their repertoire yet. I just kind of describe it as answering the phone. But
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Caceres is now. Who did Caceres do it to? I can't even think.
I don't know.
It was somewhat
It
recent.
was recent, though. Yeah, it was Rosa, wasn't it?
Yes,
like
it was
it was
Julian
Rosa.
Erosa.
Here we go. I
Yep.
just found it. I want to see how his was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
see,
feel
they're all a little bit different. Leon's is same time, which is why I didn't even credit it that same way. But I get your point. Gaethje is kind of fakes the jab, goes with the head kick. Alex actually fully throws the jab and then throws the head kick. It's all a progression of the same sequence.
Was his a lead kick though, or was his a rear kick also? Because that I can't remember.
No, Caceres surprised
it was
everybody with
rear.
that
I just
kicking.
watched it.
Anybody who was watching that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm watching it now. We're off the rails here.
Our viewers
was
love
rear kick.
watching us watch.
He was kind of moving forward as he threw
videos.
It.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That one was also, it was different timing because that one was an entire cross, like you said. It was an
Correct,
entire
yeah.
cross that missed, and then the kick came up after it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Leon
one
to the Gaethje to the Caceres is the full progression of different ways you can throw that combo.
100%. And at the end of the day, when it comes to fighting, timing is everything. There are different timings and different beats to the same techniques that you can modify and do, and you kind of have to adjust them based on who you're fighting and their timing as well. So the technique, like I said, is the same, but the way people have to set it up, the way people have to throw it, the way people have to adjust, you might see little differences here and there. But, the way I've learned it is a lot more like the Leon way to do it, where I'm throwing the punch as my kick is coming behind it because I want that kick to be there while my hand is all up in his face. That's kind of how I've learned it.
I suppose the window, that window is a very short window.
Good point.
100%. 100%. And again, the way I'm learning Muay Thai, right? So I'm not worried about takedowns or anything like that. So I'm putting my blast into the kick while trying to distract with the punch.
Totally. Let's talk about...
Omar, were you saying anything else about Justin? We went down this rabbit hole. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything further.
I mean, the fight was great, man. It was a painful way to go out. I definitely didn't see Justin getting knocked out, or Dustin getting knocked out for that matter. But I thought the first round was really close. I think I actually gave it to Dustin in the end, but it didn't really end up mattering once we got to the second round. It was a beautiful setup, and he caught him relatively clean, man. I think the last time we saw Dustin even drop like that was against McGregor way back when, but it's not even the same. It's just crazy.
Michael Johnson.
Also, Michael Johnson.
Oh, that's right.
You're forgetting Michael Johnson. Folded him.
Yes.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
We're on that baby delay.
We're on that delay, baby.
Are we
Loving
that
it.
delayed that he didn't hear me for that long? Oh
No,
my
I said it
God,
before
that's
you.
So long after.
Yes.
You thought
you
I was
said
after?
so much after me.
No. A lot of... you were definitely after.
That's so funny.
You were definitely after. It's okay. We're going to work through it.
This delay is pain.
It is. If anybody out there wants to send me a cool $1,000 for a new computer, that would be awesome. We take donations. Okay. Omar, tell me this. Let's talk about the winner, man. Justin Gaethje. He is now in the winner's circle. He is in the driver's seat. If you were the matchmaker of the UFC, what would you be nudging him towards? Title shot or McGregor payday or who knows what? Viva Mexico. He's half Mexican. We didn't know that until yesterday.
I think from a business perspective, I think either one of them really works. I think either one of them sells. So I think it's realistically at this point about situationally what ends up happening over the course of the rest of the year, especially with the Charles Oliveira Islam rematch, and then kind of seeing where McGregor is. We don't really know what his deal is anyway, whether he can fight right now. We don't know about the drug testing thing with USADA, whether he started drug testing or not. We've had Dustin already talking publicly about it, Justin Gaethje as well, about him not really wanting to fight anybody on steroids and that boy needs to get tested, which I don't necessarily disagree with. He is not passing any of the smell tests that we have. So I don't really hate that take. But if it's not McGregor, then I think he does need to wait for the winner of Islam and Oliveira and get that title shot again. I think he deserves it at this point. The kid is a beast, and he doesn't really lose to anybody but the elite of the elite. And I think he's gotten to a point now where he can go ahead and get that rematch if he needs it.
What about you, buddy? You think is next for Gaethje? McGregor, title shot? What do you think?
I mean, as always, I get it if a guy chooses the Conor McGregor payday. And it's surprising to me, at least, that it seems like Gaethje might be considering that. Because for a guy that constantly talks about how the title is the only thing that matters and how it's not about the money or the fame and only about being the best, I didn't see him choosing that when he has what seems like an undisputed title shot sitting in front of him, because it is right there. Like you can't deny him after that. He absolutely needs to get the winner of Islam Charles too. I guess Volk is in the picture, but for me, and I would guess for the UFC, when you have an Ilia Topuria there, it becomes very easy to be like, you know what, we got to give this to Gaethje. Let Volk do this Topuria fight, which is a big fight, and we'll circle our way back to Volk in a bit.
Yep.
So it certainly seems like it's there for him, but in the past, day or two here, it seems like he is shockingly more open to this Conor fight than anyone thought he was going to be. So we'll see what's really true or not true.
Yeah, man. Okay. Anything else you guys want to say about this main event fight? I agree. I think I'm a little bit disappointed that we did not get like a 4 or 5 round classic that this fight could have been. Yeah. But all props to Justin Gaethje, man, and props to Dustin Poirier for handling this one like a champion. I'm happy for that guy. He is such a stud. All right, let's move on now to the.
I loved his line of when he was like, "We're not." I loved his line when he was like, "We're not at a funeral here. I've already won at life." That was just a great mature perspective to have on the whole thing. But as for Dustin, before we move on, I am genuinely interested to see what he does, because he talks all the time lately about, since the Conor fights, about how he is set now financially, and he's made it in life, as I just said, and his family is set, and that he's only still fighting because the one thing he has not achieved is being the champion. But after that loss, he is now multiple fights away from being the champion. So I really am curious what's going through his mind at this point. And I also know that he has been pretty candid about the fact that he doesn't want to fight up-and-coming dudes. Like, I don't think he's saying yes to a Sarukian. I don't think he's saying yes to a Grant Dawson or to the Fiziev Gamrot winner. Like, it seems like these guys are not something he's wanting to put his body on the line for. So, I mean, maybe they go him and Dariush. I guess that one, you could argue, does make sense and does get him to say yes. So I guess that's my guess. He didn't sound like he was going to be done, but I'm very curious to see what his next move is going to be.
Yeah. Omar, what about you? What do you think is next for Dustin?
Yeah, the Dariush one was the one that I kind of had in mind. But Mark makes a valid point. I mean, there's not really a lot else for Dustin to do unless he wants to put the effort back into kind of going back up. And it's not like he fell very far, but he's probably at least 2 wins away from getting at least another title shot somewhere along the line, or at least a number 1 contender shot or something like that. Something that really is going to cement a shot at gold. But he's going to have... I would imagine he has to get through Dariush at this point. They're both coming off losses to big names. They're both still trying to go for the title shot. I think, to me, that's the one that makes the most sense. The Gamrot Fiziev one, I think, would make sense from a stylistic standpoint, right? I think that would just be fun to watch somebody like Fiziev or somebody like Gamrot fight a Dustin Poirier. But that's like a fan kind of thing. It wouldn't make as much sense, I think, for Poirier in the long run. So Dariush, I think, makes the most sense if he doesn't retire, but I wouldn't be surprised if he hangs it up at this point if he doesn't really see a clear path to gold.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed too, because I would have loved to see Dustin face off against Islam, and now we're probably never going to get that fight. Unless it's some kind of crazy last minute, like, week's notice replacement or something like that. So, yeah, man. Congrats to Justin Gaethje once again. Let's now move on to the main event of UFC 291. Once again, went down at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. In the co-main event in the light heavyweight division, Alex Pereira defeated Jan Blachowicz by split decision. The scorecards read 29-28, 29-28 for Pereira, and Blachowicz earning his own 29-28. Omar, let's start with you. What was your take on this fight? And first, who did you have on your scorecard?
So, it was a very interesting fight, and I think I had... The first time I watched it, I had Jan winning the fight. I had him winning rounds 1 and round 2, and then I had Pereira winning round 3. On the rewatch, I could see why you gave round 2 potentially to Pereira. Jan has a really bad habit of grappling while getting beat on, and you start getting into this whole conversation about the damage versus the grappling, because there was a lot of grappling going on from Jan's end, a lot of cage work, a lot of dropping Pereira down, working on the way up, that kind of thing, and having control, I guess, for a good portion of the round. But any chance Pereira got to land blows and land punches, he was taking it, and he was landing a lot of stuff too. And you could see by the end of that fight, Blachowicz was fucked up. He was on the ground, he was exhausted, he got beat on, especially in that third round. It was a tough fight. I don't feel like it was the kind of robbery that Blachowicz. It's not the kind of robbery that I think that Blachowicz. I don't think it's the robbery that he thinks that it is. It was a close fight. I think the second round is really where the issue comes into play as to who really won that fight. And that second round is kind of a toss-up, to be honest. So I don't really hate it. I was okay with the decision, even though the first time, like I said, I had Jan winning the fight. But I knew it was a close fight, so not mad about it.
Mark, what do you think about Pereira's inaugural UFC light heavyweight bout, coming away with the W in a split decision, of course? Who did you have winning this fight?
Yeah, Alex Pereira moves up to light heavyweight and beats the man who beat Izzy. He is just consistently finding ways to top Izzy even when he's not fighting him. But yeah, this was a close fight. Unfortunately, the altitude ended up playing a fairly heavy factor in it, I think, in terms of Jan. But similar boat for me to Omar, different rounds. Live, I thought it was 1-1 going into the third, and then I was not sure who I thought won the third. And on the rewatch, I was like, oh, okay, definitely Pereira, and I was fine with the decision, so glad it went that way. But yeah, early on, Jan did exactly what you imagined he could do against Alex, which is he came out, he got the takedown. Pereira did make him work for it, which was a good early sign. But then Jan gets him down, and he's on the back with a ton of time. And at that point, honestly, I'm like, all right, this is going to be done. I mean, every time Jan shot that arm through to the neck, I was like, all right, this is the one. He's going to get him. And it never was. Alex did so well to defend. He stayed incredibly calm. You can tell Glover must have put him in that spot countless times and worked through it all, because he really was more calm than I anticipated him being in that spot with a fresh Jan on his back. But he did well. He defended well. He made sure he got to see round 2 where he could try to turn things around. And then round 2 was competitive. There was not a ton of note happening until that Jan takedown. And when he got it, it kind of seemed like, all right, any chance of winning on these cards might be slipping away from Pereira. But he works back to his feet, and once he gets there is when you realize the altitude is kind of hitting Jan pretty hard. And Pereira just poured it on for the full final minute of that round. And it even felt like he might get Jan out of there if he could find a clean enough shot, because Jan's body was just betraying him in that moment. So I thought round 2 was clearly Pereira just because of everything in that final minute. But then for me, as I said, I had it 1-1. Live, I thought it was tight, but on the rewatch, Pereira was just ahead. He was well ahead, I thought, at the time he got taken down. He was just more active, the leg kicks, the body shots, couple nice jabs. I mean, Jan had a few good shots too, but he was too gassed, and he just didn't do enough. So I thought it was pretty clear, actually, that it was 29-28 for Pereira, and I'm glad he got the W.
Yeah, I'm glad that Pereira came away with the W as well. I'm looking forward to his next bout at light heavyweight. Speaking of which, Mark, staying with you, match him up, man. Are you shooting him straight up to the title shot, or who else would you think should he face next?
It sure feels like you take the chance to put Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira in a cage while you have that chance.
Yes.
Like, I've been reading some things saying, oh, maybe they don't want to give it to Alex off of that performance. But, like, they just booked Ankalaev against Johnny Walker. Obviously, Jamal Hill is hurt. So I don't see where else they could even go. But when you have a chance to justifiably make that matchup, you take it. You don't hope you can find it again later, because it's going to be incredible, and you get those two in a cage as soon as you can get them in a cage and let them go at it.
Fireworks. I love it. I love that logic. Omar, what do you think? Any other ideas?
Nope. It has to be Yuri Prochazka. That's absolute violence. That's not going to be somebody who's going to try to take him down, I would imagine, for probably any of that fight. They're going to square off. They're going to go at it. It's going to be like the samurai versus, the native. The bow and arrow versus the katana. Like, I'm fucking about it. I'm here for it. So they need to make that ASAP.
I agree, man. Love it. I mean, it's just going to be dynamite. Dynamite striking in the cage. Karate versus Pereira's, I guess you can call it Muay Thai, kickboxing-esque.
Muay Thai.
Yeah, man. Oh, can't wait.
Yep.
I'm already, nervous, having palpitations, just thinking about that matchup. All right, what about Jan? Mark, give us a name for Blachowicz and what you think he could be doing next at 205.
I mean, I know we've been hearing these rumblings that Alexander Rakic is finally close to returning. Doesn't seem like any triggers being pulled, so I hope there was nothing that hung him up. But it seems like his return fight could maybe just be against the same man that he got hurt against in Jan. It does make sense with Jan coming off the loss. So I think I'd go there. If not that, I also think Nikita Krylov has probably earned his shot at a rematch with as well as he's been fighting lately, and it was a while ago that he took that loss to Jan, and he's also not booked, so two solid options, I think.
Omar?
Yeah, I was going more towards the way of the winner of Ankalaev and Johnny Walker. Ankalaev never got that rematch because of that, what did it end up being, a weird draw.
Draw, yeah.
And then Johnny Walker's never had a crack at Blachowicz as well. And frankly, if he beats Ankalaev, if that actually happens, you can't really deny him a fight of that magnitude. So I'm down for that.
I figured if I get it if it's Walker, right? Maybe you're like, okay. But I figured if Ankalaev won that fight, he would get a title shot. You don't think so? He is ranked number 1.
Yeah.
Although, is he still ranked number 1? Probably, right? Pereira probably came in at 2. Now I'm curious.
They still have Jamal Hill as a champion, I think.
Oh, well, so I'm not counting Jamal Hill. I'm imagining him as being, out of commission.
Right.
So, I mean, and I guess Prochazka's won because it's not like he has the belt. So, sorry,
exactly.
My point is about number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Light heavyweight it's a disaster, that division. We've gotten to a real messy top 5 at this point.
Yeah, the Hill injury sucks.
Yeah.
But hey, if you can book Pereira and Yuri, then everything is all right.
Somebody, I don't remember who it was, but somebody was talking about how Jamal Hill injured his leg because he got fat. It's crazy.
His leg couldn't carry the weight.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, boys. In the heavyweight division, UFC 291, Derrick Lewis gets in the win column. He needed it in a bad way because he had lost 4 of his last 5. But he gets back in the win column emphatically defeating Marcos Rogerio de Lima by TKO in the very first round, under a minute, almost within 30 seconds. The official time, 33 seconds of round number 1. Mark, start us off. Break down this 30 seconds of madness and a few other vintage Derrick Lewis moments that we were treated to right after.
Derrick Lewis with the flying knee knockdown at the opening bell, just like we all predicted we would see. That was unreal. Friggin' awesome from Derrick Lewis. Exactly the type of win that you hoped to see him get to bounce back from the fights he's been having lately. And he looked great. Physically, he was in great shape. He showed off the abs at weigh-ins for the first time. And he delivered, man. He landed the flying knee. I didn't even think he landed it at first. I thought it was just the impact of him kind of running over De Lima that knocked De Lima down. But then you see the replay, and that thing landed flush. So great shot from him. He didn't let De Lima recover. Then the shorts came off. The cup goes into the crowd. Gives you a classic Derrick Lewis interview. I loved the line of, I just said, let me throw some bullshit and see if it lands. That was fucking classic.
Yep.
But now through all that, he puts himself in a great place entering free agency. I'd guess the UFC wants him back just because he as popular as he is. But there may be another fight out there that's worth setting up, and I'm sure we will mention that in a minute. But awesome to see Derrick Lewis get this done and get back to his winning, knockouting ways.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I felt like a chooch for picking De Lima, especially once you actually saw the fight and actually what happened, and it's like, oh, well, God damn it. It's not the greatest pick. Yeah, not the greatest pick. But you got to love Derrick Lewis, man. I mean, an absolute Derrick Lewis performance, a Derrick Lewis finish, a Derrick Lewis celebration, a Derrick Lewis post-fight interview. I mean, that dude could have his own TV show and make all of the money. He's a great personality. He's a fun fighter to watch for sure. And like Mark said, with him being in free agency, there's a spot there for him that's very, very interesting that might offer more money than what the UFC might be willing to offer this dude at this point. Very possible, and that's saying something because I'm sure the UFC will give Derrick Lewis a pretty penny. But there are some other options right now that might be a little bit more interesting for Derrick Lewis in his career right now at where he is. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Derrick Lewis is he's the anti-Michael Chandler. Because when you just said that he's a great personality, he is, but in his own very unique way. I think of Michael Chandler. I have a lot of respect for Michael Chandler's PR skills. He's such a great talker. He's so great on camera. He's so great on a microphone.
For sure.
I've said it before on this show. I think that Michael Chandler has some kind of huge future, either as an analyst for ESPN or maybe doing color or probably something like that. Derrick Lewis is not that. Derrick Lewis he's the anti that, and he just gets on the mic and he is off the cuff like you would not believe, man. And he will be missed more than, I don't know, anybody, maybe more than anybody. When he leaves the sport. All the moments that we have, he is must
also the
see
knockout king
TV.
Again.
Yes, he's back on top of that list. So, Mark, what you alluded before to what could be next for Derrick Lewis?
So I'm sure a lot of you listening have heard people throwing this out there, but it does make plenty of sense. If you are the PFL, don't you try to secure the services of Derrick Lewis and set up a Francis Ngannou rematch? It is absolutely bigger than anything else you can do with anyone who's currently on that PFL roster by a mile in terms of buzz, in terms of able to sell it, getting casual viewers interested, getting UFC-only fans who don't watch other things to be like, wait a second, Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou are fighting? I know those guys. Maybe I should watch this event. So there's a lot of reasons for them to do it. It's a great avenue for Derrick Lewis. The money will probably be good. It may not happen. He may just get a good offer from the UFC and say, why would I leave? I love it here. So we will see how it plays out. If he does stay in the UFC, I say this all the time. I've always wanted to see him and Jairzinho Rozenstruik in there. I'm going to do it again here. Why the fuck not? Seems like it works. So that's what I'll say if it's UFC. But, yeah, the Ngannou thing is really interesting.
That's almost surprising that they haven't fought. But, Omar, what were you going to say?
Yeah. Well, so I also am surprised that Jairzinho Rozenstruik and him haven't fought. I had to look a couple times. I was like, how has this never happened? I didn't even understand it. But yeah, the Ngannou thing it's a real thing. It's a very big possibility at this point. The option is definitely there. I was trying to look up. They had just done a thing about what the purses were for UFC, or at least the purses that were disclosed anyway. And how the hell is Derrick Lewis not even on this goddamn list? Well, that was completely pointless. But I was trying to figure out what Derrick Lewis was making. The highest person that made money on that list right now was Dustin Poirier with $1.9 million off of UFC 291, which is fantastic to hear that Dustin Poirier is getting his flowers. And then Michael Chiesa earned the lowest at $110,000. So somewhere along those, in that middle area there, I'm assuming was Derrick Lewis. But from what I remember, people who fight Ngannou, I think at this point, are making a minimum of like $1 or $2 million or something like that, like guaranteed. So it might be something to think about for Derrick Lewis. That might be the biggest payday of his entire career off of one fight. So it might be a real thing. If that doesn't happen, though, just like Mark kind of said, oh no, Mark didn't say it. But if he doesn't go to the PFL, I would imagine somebody like Alexander Volkov would probably be interesting to have that rematch at this point. It's been like 5 years since they fought. So it'd be interesting.
Wait, you said that Poirier made, did you say $9 million?
$1.9 million.
Oh, my bad. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Shall we move on?
Let's do it.
All right. Down in the lightweight division, Bobby Green defeated Tony Ferguson by technical submission via arm triangle choke towards the very end of the fight, the official time, 4 minutes and 54 seconds of round number 3. Omar, staying with you here. Tony Ferguson, he showed out a little bit. He showed up, but he showed out a little bit. Would you agree?
I would not.
No?
I would not.
I thought
Tony Ferguson. No, dude. Tony Ferguson looked horrible, man. He looked slow. His reactions were really bad. He was turning his back multiple times. It was. I don't want to see Tony Ferguson fight anymore. I don't. I love Tony Ferguson. You know, he was a great time, but the reality is, after he blew out his knee from that cord way back when, that dude hasn't won a fight. Literally since that moment. So it could be something physical with him. It could be something mental with him. But he does not look like the same fighter that he was before that moment. So I can't enjoy the fights. I'm just consistently worried about him getting hurt at this point because I don't think he can appropriately defend himself the way he used to. And, you know, while he didn't get completely like Gaethje'd in this fight like he did then, it still wasn't a great performance. I thought he got worked, I think, the entire time. The eye poke, I think he was putting a lot of stock into. Eye pokes suck. I'm not going to like dispute that. But like he wasn't winning the fight before then. This idea that he was getting in the zone and whatever other fucking stuff he put in that Instagram post about what happened in that fight. Like, no. You were getting worked even before then. And the fact that Bobby Green got a goddamn submission on Tony Ferguson, I think, is wild sauce. So, I don't want to see Tony Ferguson fight anymore. I'm done.
Mark, do you also disagree with me? I thought that Tony had some moments earlier on in the fight.
So I disagree with you. I also disagree with Omar. I thought Tony looked okay in the first 3-ish minutes of the fight when his awkwardness was still an advantage for him because Bobby Green had not adjusted to it yet, and that's when he got the knockdown, obviously, of Bobby Green. So you can't say he was looking trash when he had a knockdown. But from I guess I was going to say round 2, but really even from the last minute or two of round 1, Bobby had made his reads. He had got used to Tony's timing, and the whole fight had already changed. And from that point on, Tony didn't look like he had much. So it was all Bobby Green. Then Tony looked kind of sad again. And, excuse me, we know this. He's still game as hell. He's still hard to hurt. He's going to keep coming, but his tools are just not what they once were. And Bobby was really able to start teeing off and styling on Tony a bit. He did well on top in round 2 to do damage, and then once they were standing again, he really put a lot of clean shots on Tony's chin, and then he capped it, man. I mean, Tony still won't tap. I'm honestly not sure he's even aware that tapping is an option when you're in the cage. But Bobby Green freaking chokes him out. What a feather in the cap of Bobby Green, and a career accomplishment that he can always look back and say he put Tony Ferguson out cold with a choke. So great job by Bobby. Great win for him. And Tony, you know, I think we all wish he would stop, but he doesn't seem to be interested. I don't know what the UFC thinks of it at this point. We're kind of reaching that point where I wonder if Dana is going to be like, sorry, bud, if you're going to keep fighting, it's not going to be here. But I wish he would stop as well.
Tony has now lost 6 in a row to Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, Michael Chandler, Nate Diaz, and Bobby Green now. Before that, let's just, point it out, because I think it needs to be pointed out. We need to remember just how good Tony Ferguson once was. Before this 6-fight losing streak, Tony Ferguson rattled off 12 consecutive wins, defeating the likes of Donald Cerrone, Anthony Showtime Pettis, Kevin Lee, Rafael Dos Anjos, Edson Barboza, Josh Thompson, Gleason Tebow. The man was good. He has also wins over Eve Edwards, and just scrolling down further down his record, his third pro bout, he defeated Joe Schilling by submission. So, all right, Mark, put on the matchmaker hat again. If Tony says, I'm fighting and I'm not retiring, who would you give to him as his next lightweight opponent?
So I actually have an idea that I love. If he is not retiring, first of all, I would like it to be agreed upon that the next fight is his retirement fight, because he does deserve to have, the Robbie Lawler type of deal where we recognize him and he gets one more time in the cage and whatever. So I'm fine with that. I put it at UFC 300 across from Jim Miller.
Ooh. Omar.
So I actually also had Jim Miller in there as well. And then I had the thought, Jim Miller might actually really fuck Tony up. So then I kind of rethought it, and I was like, who's also could be an interesting fight that I don't believe will murder Tony Ferguson? And I landed on Clay Guida. So either Clay Guida or Jim Miller, I'm okay with.
Fair. Like that a lot. Let's talk about the winner here now. Bobby King Green. Wait a second. Did he legally change his name to King or something?
He said he was going to, but they were calling him Bobby the whole time, so I'm not sure that he did.
He's going to be the fighter formerly known as Bobby Green. Omar, Bobby Green, he has now, wait, let me see, gotten back in the win column. Hadn't won a fight since he defeated Nasrat Haqparast back in February of 2022. Back in the win column with a nice finish over a big name still in Tony Ferguson. Always will be a big name somewhat. What would you do next with Bobby Green at lightweight?
So I would do Guram Kutateladze. Stylistically, I think that's a fun fight. It's also kind of a step up for Bobby Green, because even though Tony Ferguson has been a kind of a losing streak, he still did beat Tony Ferguson. Is definitely one of the bigger names on his resume at this point. The way he beat him, I thought, was absolutely impressive. So I do think he deserves a little bit of a bump up and a shot to continue to prove himself, and I think Kutateladze is exactly that person to do it.
Mark?
I'm cool with that one. I would love to see Bobby get a ranked fighter, almost as like a career acknowledgement at this point. I know he got the Islam fight, but it was short notice, horrible circumstances. I will say one of Jalen Turner or Diego Ferreira.
Nice.
Jalen Turner.
Diego. All right, let's keep going. We've got a lot more MMA to cover. In the opening bout of UFC 291, in the welterweight division, Kevin Holland gets another W at 170, this time defeating Michael Chiesa by submission via Darce choke. The official time 2:39 of the very first round. Kevin Holland making it look somewhat easy. He was just too much for Michael Chiesa. Mark, give us your take of the fight and of Kevin Holland's performance as he rolls on at 170.
This one was a tale of two fighters, one who looked great and one who looked awful. And I think both can be true. It's not that it only has to be one of those ways, because Holland did look great, Chiesa did look awful. Holland fought a perfect fight. He used his reach. Every time Chiesa thought about shooting, he also changed his level and punched to the body, which was working really well to kind of deter Chiesa. His takedown defense and balance was some of the best we've ever seen from him. And then you have Chiesa, who looked really uncomfortable on the feet. He always kind of does, but add in the rust and the reach of Holland, and I think it was just a bad mix for Chiesa because he really looked awkward out there. He kept awkwardly ducking down to avoid shots like over and over. It ends up getting him kneed in the head, as it should have. That's exactly what should happen when you keep ducking down like that. And then he gets caught in a Darce, which just feels like it happens to him all the time. So really tough return from him, but a huge statement win for Kevin Holland as well.
Omar.
Yeah, man. Kevin Holland made it look easy, which I think is the most impressive part. It was a great performance from him, a really dominant performance from him. I don't think at any point Kevin Holland looked like he was in trouble or struggling in that fight. And I think, to be honest, I think Chiesa took a big chance fighting somebody like Kevin Holland coming off of a layoff like that, especially off of the injury that he had as well. I think he had a pretty bad back injury at one point that he had to get surgery for or some shit like that. So I thought it was a tall order in the first place. And, you know, people who keep sleeping on Kevin Holland, and especially, you know, his ability to wrestle and things like that, like the kid doesn't have now the resources and the time to just literally wrestle as much as humanly possible. As somebody who probably overtrains, I can tell you right now that somebody who has the ability to do it all the time and doesn't have to worry about much else as far as, like, you know, 8-hour jobs and all that kind of, you know, 8-hour a day jobs, 40-hour a week, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
He's going to show gains if he's really learning, if he's really taking the time to make those adjustments and make those gains. He's going to learn, man. And I think we're starting to really see the fruits of that labor.
All right, Omar, staying with you here, because Kevin Holland has fought the beginning of his UFC career at 185 pounds, just about most of the names in the UFC welterweight rankings are guys that he has not fought, save Stephen Thompson, who is ranked 7th for the UFC. I wonder what he is in the Priaulx rankings, as well as I wonder what Kevin Holland is in the Priaulx rankings now, which we will find out shortly. That being said, give us a name up in the rankings of who you would want Kevin Holland to go against next.
So I think right now the one to me that makes the most sense is the winner of Vicente Luque and RDA. I think once we get that taken care of timeline-wise, I think it should match up so that the winner and Kevin Holland can square off. And from a ranking standpoint, they should be relatively in that same area once it's all said and done.
Mark?
So I agree that makes sense. I thought about it as well. First of all, he should chill with the talk of a return to middleweight. I absolutely think he should stay at welterweight at this point. Not like he can't ever go back up, but I don't think right now is the time. But I am going to reward Kevin Holland with a huge fight at welterweight. I don't know how realistic it is. You guys might think I'm crazy. But there's a former champion named Kamaru Usman that has no one to fight. Leon and Colby are fighting each other. Bilal is getting the winner.
Wow.
Chimaev is moving up. Shavkat is fighting Gastelum. Burns is hurt. Neal is fighting Gary. The only other one, okay, Luque and RDA is very soon. You could go with the winner. But Usman is dying for a fight. He thought he was fighting Chimaev. He lost it. He keeps vocalizing how he wants to get back in there. Why not give that fight to Kevin Holland? He's a fan favorite. He'll build the fight. They have a pre-existing beef. They almost had an altercation backstage like a year ago. He did you the favor and saved the day against Chimaev. He looks great right now. And most importantly, I actually think he is a pretty interesting test for Usman. His striking and length can potentially make Usman uncomfortable on the feet. The length in the grappling could maybe present some things. I mean, the question is just whether he will get terribly out-wrestled for the entire fight. But let's see. Let's get Usman a fun fight that will have build, that fans will get into, and reward Kevin Holland, who is a great company man. Now tell me that I'm crazy.
So I'll just say this. There's currently, and this is, I guess, a part of the MMA sphere that we were going to get into, but Kelvin Gastelum, if you didn't know already, and Mark, I know you do know this, Kelvin Gastelum's face done got broken. They spinning back fucking elbowed him in the face. His nose is broken. Apparently there were a few bones in his face that got broken that needed to get fixed. So the fight between him and Shavkat is currently off. Right now, the rumor is that Shavkat's managers are trying to get him a fight with either Usman.
Oh, really?
Or Wonderboy.
I had read that they were rescheduling the Shavkat Gastelum fight. I didn't realize it was off like that.
Yeah, well, so they said if they can't reschedule it, because I think they're trying to figure out the timeline. They're not trying to wait for Gastelum. So if it's like an extra couple weeks or something like that, that's one thing. But if they're trying to make him wait months, I don't think he's going to do it. And if that does end up being the case, they're going to go they're looking to go either Usman or Wonderboy.
Wonderboy don't want to fight Shavkat, man.
Wonderboy actually said he would totally fight Shavkat.
He ever says how he doesn't want to fight people who are going to take him down.
No, so he said basically that he doesn't mind giving up-and-comers a shot, that there are people that are deserving. And he mentioned people like Ian Gary and Shavkat. Because he was kind of going, not off, he's like the nicest fucking human being in the world. So when I say off, I mean going off the way Stephen Wonderboy Thompson would. But he was going off on Pereira, obviously, for missing weight. And how people like Shavkat and Ian Gary are professionals. They make weight, they honor their contracts, they honor their word. And so he would be more apt to fight those kind of up-and-comers and those guys rather than somebody who doesn't really... Somebody like Pereira at this point. That he doesn't want to rematch with him or to reschedule that fight at all.
If they do go Shavkat Wonderboy, my Holland idea is still in play.
Yeah. You
think it's crazy? You think it's unrealistic?
Oh, I think it's fucking insane. I think it's absolutely mad. But I'm here for it.
Dude, Stephen Thompson versus Ian Gary would be insane. What a great matchup stylistically.
Ugh.
Fireworks, man.
It would break my heart, though, man.
Yeah.
It would break my heart.
I would not want to see Gary
lose.
Guys. Yeah, same.
And I really think at that point, yeah, I really think I would be rooting against Wonderboy, which, why?
Yeah.
I love Ian Gary, though, man. I want good things for him.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that fight's soon. It's in like 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to mention anything quickly about Michael Chiesa and where he might be next?
Oh yeah, I'll throw a name. I've always thought that him and Gunnar Nelson would make a cool fight, and maybe now that works after how rough Chiesa looked there to take that step down. Not like it's a huge step down, but a bit and fight Gunnar.
Omar.
I think that Chiesa at this point should go up against maybe somebody like a Daniel Rodriguez. He's had a little bit of a rough go as well, and I think this would be a nice little bounce back for him, a good name for him to win against if he does end up winning, and a nice test for Chiesa still to kind of keep moving up the ranks if he's able to do that still.
Okay, only 6 undercard fights. Let's blow through this with our lightning round. Okay, in the featured bout of the prelims on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN Plus. In the welterweight division, another Bonfim brother back in the action. Gabriel Bonfim, this time getting the win over Trevin Giles by submission via guillotine choke in the first round. Mark, go first.
Gabriel Bonfim is a dangerous man, and he shows out again. Came out super aggressive, walking Giles down, quick combos, lifts him up for a takedown, and then Giles makes a mistake, and the fight's over. That guillotine from Bonfim is just a deadly, deadly guillotine.
Yeah, dude, it didn't help that Bonfim and Giles were completely dry at that point, so it was much easier to sink that guillotine choke in there. But that was one of those moments where as soon as he jumped guard for that guillotine, you could see how tight it was, and you knew Giles had to tap sooner or later, man. It was a great performance for the Bonfim brother, kind of one that we expect, I think, at this point from them, which is going to be high, a high standard for him to continue to keep living up to. But as of right now, it's working for him.
Okay, because of my delay, I'm going to say now, whoever is going to go second between the two of you, don't wait for me to cue you. Just go when the other guy finishes. To not fucking keep killing the fucking momentum of our fucking lightning round. Okay, catch weight bout at 128.5 pounds. CJ Vergara defeats Vinicius Salvador by UD. Omar, go first.
So I remember enjoying the last performance from Salvador, and this one annoyed the shit out of me. This man was bouncing all over the place, didn't really do a whole hell of a lot. I thought he would be way more effective with his striking, with the dexterity he has, and with the distance management he has. But it was not working. And CJ Vergara is that type of dude that if you're not hitting him, if you're not doing something to him, he's just gonna walk forward and he's gonna walk you down. He's like a little tank, and he's gonna do work on you. And that's exactly what happened. And I think when I was picking this fight, I totally thought that this man would actually be landing strikes to keep CJ Vergara at bay. But it looked like he was point fighting for the entire fight. It was weird to me. I didn't care for it. Good on CJ Vergara, though.
Yeah, I feel like I was just as annoyed with Salvador in the prior fight. I feel like he fights like he's sparring. It's strange. And yeah. I feel like this one played out kind of how I said it would. Like, Salvador has the flashy striking. He was able to get more done in round one and jump out to a lead because Vergara kind of came out stuck in neutral, it seemed like. But Vergara got going in round two, and when he gets going, the work rate is always high for him. He was able to land the straight strikes as he adjusted to Salvador's timing and beat the wider, kind of almost more casual. It's not the right word to say, but that's how they feel. Strikes that Salvador throws, and he was throwing straight shots with intent, and they were landing first, and he earned the W. So well done by CJ.
Okay, Mark, staying with you. In the middleweight division, Roman Kopylov made me look bad by head-kicking Claudio Ribeiro into the bleachers. 33 seconds of round two. Take it away.
Ribeiro spent the first 3 minutes of the fight waiting to counter. And, yeah, he did have his crazy late flurry in round one. But for the most part, it wasn't smart because it really let Roman Kopylov get really comfortable and get himself into a flow state, and he flowed himself right into a picture-perfect textbook left high kick that separated Ribeiro from his senses. So great job from Kopylov. That's 3 in a row now, and he is wrecking dudes.
Yeah, man. Kopylov looked great. Technique-wise, I thought he was on point. I had Rogerio just because of the power. I thought the power differential would make a difference, and I think you could see how much that power really impacted even the small moments that Rogerio had in that fight. But Kopylov, his technique was better. He was able to keep him at bay. He was able to just pour the pace on him. And eventually it got to a point where he got that left kick right into his face. And the only reason I think Rogerio didn't completely go out is because he caught him with the foot and not the shin. But the shit still hurts. It just didn't put him completely to sleep.
Okay, Omar, coming right back to you in the welterweight division. Jake Matthews gets it done over Darius Flowers by submission via rear naked choke in round two. Take it away.
Man, Jake Matthews knows how to make somebody really fucking anxious, because the beginning of that fight, that he had me worried, man. Darius Flowers He's not from what I saw, his technique and the way that he approaches fights is not my favorite, not by a long shot. And I think Jake Matthews showed that there is a real difference in how technique is used over like just raw power. But there were moments there for a minute where when you get caught with stuff like that, you can get really fucked up. And Jake Matthews was in a few positions against the cage, making sure, he didn't take anything clean, thank God, but he was putting himself in positions that had me concerned. Very, very concerned. But we got to a point, first of all, his work to Flowers' body, disgustingly great. The front kicks were money all day. I loved it. Digging his toes right into his solar plexus. It was fantastic. I really loved the performance from Jake Matthews, especially as the fight progressed. I thought he got more and more dominant as the fight went on. So once he got that sub, it was all but done. I had a great time watching him.
Yeah, first off, Darius Flowers pushes one of the craziest paces I've ever seen. But it didn't matter because Jake was prepared and he handled it. But I do feel like Flowers deserves a shout-out for that because it was pretty wild. Like, watching it, you were like, my God, is this guy going to freaking take his foot off the gas for a second? But, yeah, Jake handled it. He forced him to slow down. He landed to the body with the kicks and the hands, as Omar pointed out, both of them. He got Flowers breathing a bit heavier and then had one of the nastiest, like, big brother stuffs of a takedown that you'll see and just went to work on the ground until the rear naked choke presented itself. So great night for Matthews. Needed it.
Yeah.
Okay, staying in the welterweight division, now in the early prelims on ESPN Plus, and UFC Fight Pass. Udos Medic defeats Matthew Semmelsberger by TKO via spinning back fist and punches in the third round. Mark, go.
This fight was nuts, literally from the opening bell. Just a crazy pace that never let up. Both guys were hurt at times. Medic was dropped a couple times, and Semmelsberger always felt like he was maybe a bit ahead. He was landing a bit harder, but Medic was always firing back. He was investing to the body, and then he found it in round 3. Lands a big combo, follows up with a spinning back fist. He does get a stoppage that was maybe a bit quick. It wasn't my favorite, but I'm not sure it would have changed if Semmelsberger got those extra 5 seconds. I just wish he did. So props to Medic either way. A great fight throughout and a great job by him to pull it out late.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was really glad we didn't go to the decision, man, because I picked Medic to win that fight. And by the time we got to the third round, I was like, this fight's a banger. This fight's been a war from beginning to end. But I do not think Medic was winning that fight by the end of the second round. So I was super glad once Medic got that finish. But Semmelsberger is a motherfucker, man. I mean, every time we watch this guy, I know that, the Jake Matthews fight, we kind of had like this, thought that Jake Matthews would be so much better than Semmelsberger. But like Semmelsberger is deceptively good in that cage. Like there's nothing flashy about him. There's nothing super obvious. There's other guys that I think visually are probably more appealing when you watch them fight. But that dude is good, man. He is a tank. He is a very durable fighter. Yeah. Granted, he got knocked out, but he's still a very durable fighter, and he comes forward a lot. He's somebody that they definitely got to start watching out for sure.
I actually thought that was the best he ever looked, funny enough.
I agree.
In a loss.
I agree.
All right, now opening UFC 291 once again in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the women's flyweight division. Show favorite, Miranda Fear the Maverick, gets the W over Priscilla Cachoeira by submission via armbar in round number 3. Omar, start us off.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the Miranda Maverick that I thought existed. That girl looked great in that fight. And I think there was a little bit from the Cachoeira side as well, because I think once we started getting further into that fight, you could see the will of Cachoeira starting to break, and I think Miranda did a great job to continue to capitalize it. It sounds like Cachoeira also pulled a couple of dirty moves in the octagon, which I'm not thrilled to hear about. I was not a fan of the ghost tapping, if you will, but apparently Miranda Maverick has accused her of basically digging her fingers under the UFC top and potentially trying to expose her underbits.
Wow.
Which
you
is
saw
not
the ref stop it live in the fight to get her hand.
Yeah. Dude, he had to dig her hand out.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't a simple
He was
tap.
yelling, saying like it got stuck in there. Like who knows? But
It seems wild. Seems wild to me. But either way, the ghost tap at the end, just before that fight ended, I'm glad Miranda Maverick was not the type of fighter who lets go when she feels a tap and she waited for the referee. Because Cashiora was playing games there, and you are not going to convince me otherwise. She knew exactly what she was doing. She tried to play some old school shit where she tried to really light tap, like, oh, I didn't tap, and hopefully Miranda Maverick would let it go a little bit. Nah, I love that Maverick kept it going. She even said it after the fight. I've learned from experience. I'm not letting that go until the referee comes and takes me off of there. Beautiful performance from Miranda Maverick. That's the one that needs, that's the type of fighter, the performances that she needs going forward, and I'm glad she capitalized.
Yep. Glad we all stayed on Miranda Maverick for one more fight because we would have looked a little dumb if we didn't pick her. It seems like we are learning that she is a very hot and cold matchup-based fighter. She either seems to look fantastic or look confusingly off, but she looked fantastic here. And, you forget you were even concerned. That's how good she looked here. So she did fine on the feet against a dangerous striker, continually found ways to bring it to the mat, controlled Cachoeira throughout in the grappling, and obviously ultimately got the tap with the arm bar. So a great bounce back for her, and we'll see if she can finally kind of create some momentum here the next time out.
And that does it, gentlemen, for our recap of UFC 291. We touched on every single fight, so you're welcome. And now let's put a bow on this one, boys, by finding out who rose and who has fallen in Mark's rankings system that we call the Priaulx Rankings. Mark?
All right, not a ton of updates this week, but a couple noteworthy ones. We have one faller and two risers. The faller, Tony Ferguson. I still had Tony Ferguson ranked at number 11 at lightweight.
Holy shit.
I didn't know what to do with this man. All his losses were to elite fighters and who are, ranked like 8 and up, I think, all his losses. And obviously the Nate one up at welterweight. It just felt he was still more proven than most of these guys who were under him, like a Jalen Turner or whoever it might be. So I felt weird moving him under them, and now I don't, because now is the time. So Tony Ferguson moves from number 11 to number 23 in my lightweight rankings. The two risers, the biggest mover of the week is Uros Medic. He was a lightweight. He moved up to welterweight. Didn't have the deepest resume in the world. I inserted him at number 51 in my welterweight rankings. He now goes all the way up to number 28 after taking out Matt Semmelsberger. So nice jump for him. He's right in the mix right away. And then the last one, Kevin Holland, goes from number 14 to number 10 in my welterweight rankings, above Sean Brady. The UFC put him behind. I don't understand that. Sean Brady has not done anything much other than beat Michael Chiesa, and he did it barely, whereas Kevin Holland did it in style and has a deeper resume than Sean Brady. So to me, he should absolutely be ranked ahead of Sean Brady. And that's the end of my rant.
That's the end of your rankings?
My rant and my rankings, both.
Okay. All right, boys. Let us now turn our attention to the Bellator versus Rizin 2 card that went down. Let me pull this bitch up. Oh, where did it go? I just had it here. Let me pull it up again real quick. Mark, say things.
I remember the days when you were prepared on this show. That's what I'll say. Used to run this thing like a well-oiled machine.
God damn.
Now we're just lost at sea.
It's the delay.
Rudderless.
The delay has thrown me off so much. All right. In a fun,
pages.
like a double-header day, Bellator versus Rizin 2 went down in Japan. at the Saitama Super Arena. And let's kick this thing off with the main event. Patricky Pitbull defeated Roberto de Souza by TKO via leg kicks in round number 3. Mark, start us off. Give us your take and your impressions of Pitbull getting it done in the main event.
I have to say, I truly didn't think Patricky Pitbull could get that done. And I know de Souza doesn't have a ton of wins against established top-tier fighters either, but I thought he was good enough to beat Pitbull regardless. Now, 4 days' notice is certainly something that could have been a factor here, but you can only go off the fight we got, and I didn't love the way de Souza fought it. He was very comfortable standing and waiting to counter and exchanging on the feet, and that's where Patricky lives. So I think there should have been way more urgency from de Souza to create contact. It didn't even have to be takedowns. It could be clinches. It could be guard pulls, anything. I don't think he made Patricky think nearly enough about the threats that he brings into the cage. I don't think he ever made Patricky feel that fear of like, fuck, I can't let him get a hold of me. It just didn't seem like it was part of the fight. And because of that, Patricky got to work, and he did a great job dictating the exchanges. He did stuff a couple takedowns. I don't want to say he didn't. He lands the great flying knee late in round 2, and then he ends things with a calf kick KO. And you love to see a finish like that. It's not even as if he had invested so much in that leg. It was just a perfect, devastating calf kick, and de Souza went down. So a really big win for Patricky Pitbull. Legitimized him somewhat in my eyes as a guy I always kind of questioned. Again, it's not like de Souza's the most proven guy in the world, but I was impressed with this win, and he will go on now to face Alexander Shabliy in the semis, and if he could get past him, he'll have a shot to get his title back in the final.
Omar?
Yeah. I didn't think Patricky would be able to finish this fight. Patricky, I'm sorry. I didn't think he'd be able to finish this fight, but he did. And I thought he looked fantastic. I thought at the end of that second round, the flying knee that ended up knocking down de Souza, I mean, I think under normal circumstances, if it wasn't somebody who was such a threat on the ground, I think Patricky would have been a little bit more apt to continue to like push forward and finish him and follow him down on the ground and stuff like that. But I do think that there was still caution throughout that fight. I think de Souza suffers from a lot of the problems that a lot of really high-level jiu-jitsu guys have, which is they're not great at wrestling takedowns. They're good at BJJ takedowns of sorts, but that generally doesn't work against somebody who knows how to stuff takedowns, both wrestling and BJJ takedowns alike. And de Souza was not really like... I didn't actually ever think that de Souza was going to get a legit takedown on Patricky. I figured if anything he would pull guard, and I think he tried to do that at least once, and it didn't work for him either. And I think a lot of that just really deterred him from continuing to find that avenue. I'm sure there was a lot of expended energy trying to do that stuff, so I think it put him in a really awkward position the longer the fight went on, because I think he started to see his tools were just not working the way I think he wanted them to work. And I think it started to mess with his mindset. And I think for Patricky, I don't think enough things deterred him in that fight for him to become uncomfortable, and so he just kept pushing forward, kept doing damage, kept doing basically what he wanted to do until he leg kicked him to hell. So great performance from Patricky, man. I figured he'd win that fight, but he did that fight even better than I thought he was going to.
Yeah, man. Right. Anything you guys want to say about what's next for Pitbull?
Well, we know he's going to the semis. He's going to fight Alexander Shabliy. But we don't have to. I don't think we have to match up these Bellators. We got a lot to get to still.
This is true. Okay, co-main event: Kyoji Horiguchi went up against Makoto Shinryu, and it ended in a no contest because under a minute, it ended in an eye poke, and it was a no contest. So, what do you guys want to say about that?
Dog. I mean, there's not much to say, dude. There was nothing happened. It was literally the first exchange of the fight, and Horiguchi's his index finger or his middle finger like went right into homeboy's eye. I thought it swelled up almost immediately, but maybe that was just the way his dude's face is. But it was rough. It was a rough eye poke. I feel like we've seen people react worse to eye pokes than he did, but I'm also not the type of person. And I think, Mark, after you've gotten eye poked recently, I think you might be in the same boat as me where I'm just like, I'm not really ready to give people shit when they get poked in the eye, because not only does it hurt like a motherfucker and take a little while for it to clear up, but you sometimes legitimately see multiple things like double vision quite often when that happens. So, I don't want to give him too much shit, but I had to notice that we've seen dudes react a lot worse to eye pokes and continue fighting. Yeah. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but it just made this one seem, I guess, less of a problem as other ones that we have seen. That's all.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. At first, the way he was reacting, I was like, all right, this sucks. But then as it kept going, I was like, wait a second, like, is this fight not going to go on? Like, it just didn't seem like that's what it was going to be until we got there. And it was like, oh, fuck. So, I mean, I agree, though. I don't question guys' reaction to eye pokes. I try my best not to do that, at least. But this sucked so much. I was so ready to see Kyoji get a belt. Shinryu had a hype entrance with the mask and all. I was ready to go, and we did not get very far. Basically, the first exchange, as you said, and it was all over. So it sucks. You wonder if they'll ever run it back with the future of Bellator up in the air. Maybe this just doesn't happen, but we shall see.
Okay, Mark, staying with you, give us your impressions of Watanabe unanimous decision over Arteaga. Or Arteaga.
So this was a controversial fight on Twitter and everywhere else. Round one was a really competitive round. Commentary made it sound like Arteaga clearly won. I disagreed. I had Kana ahead early. Then, yes, Arteaga had a great portion of the round where she started landing some big shots, snapped Kana's head back, and I thought she did pull ahead in that sequence. But then Kana gets the late takedown and lands some solid shots. Like in the last 15 seconds, she lands 7-8 hard shots to the head. So to me, it was enough to take the round back. And I had Watanabe up after one. Then round two, it wasn't a great round for Watanabe by any means, but I didn't think Arteaga got anything done, really, in that round. So for me, it was Kana again, and I had her up 2-0. And then the third was definitely Arteaga's round. But I saw a lot of people saying Veta won. I saw a lot of people saying even that she won 30-27. And I agree it was no great performance from Kana, but I actually think she did enough to get the W. I think rounds 1 and 2 were hers.
Omar?
I wasn't a fan of the commentary. I will say that, because by the end of that fight, if you listen to the commentary, Arteaga had completely destroyed Kana.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it was that her name, Kana? Yes, Kana
yeah.
Watanabe. I wasn't a huge fan of the commentary. I did, however, throughout the entirety of the fight, thought that Arteaga landed much cleaner, much bigger shots, did significantly more damage overall throughout the entirety of that fight. I think the main thing that Kana brought to the table past the first round was only grappling. And grappling that, frankly, I didn't think was very effective. There was a lot of work on the cage. There was a lot of work to try and take her down, but at no point did she ever really have complete control of her where I thought Arteaga was at a real disadvantage. I thought even in moments where Arteaga was fighting off the takedown, she was still landing shots here and there. I just thought she was a bit busier in a lot of these certain situations throughout the fight. And you could really say this for 1, 2, or 3. The fight never really changed that momentum. I thought it was a very competitive fight throughout. I don't think it was a blowout from Arteaga, but I do think that Arteaga landed throughout the fight the bigger and the heavier shots and did more damage overall. So that was why I gave Arteaga the fight. I thought she had 1, 2, and 3, just doing it individually, not really trying to look at it as a whole fight. If you tell me that Kana got round 1, especially because of that late takedown and the flurry at the end. I'm not going to argue with it. 2 and 3, though, I thought Arteaga had, in my opinion.
All right. Let's move on to...
That's as controversial as it is for everyone else.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I got this one right. Magomedov, round 1, submission over Danny Sabatello. Yeah. Mark, give us your take of how this fight played out.
You did, man. It was encouraging signs for Sabatello early. He successfully shot from what looked like it was way too far away, and he got it. He got the back. He lifted Magomedov up for a mat return. It looked like we were settling in for another wrestling exhibition from Danny Sabatello. And he was winning all the transitions and scrambles, which is what I thought was going to be a key for why he would win this fight. And he was winning them until he put his head into a guillotine. And he did fight out of the first one, but he kind of ended up fighting out only to slip his head right into one on the other side. And even in it, it honestly looked like he might have been okay. Like, I was looking at it, and I was like, oh, I think he's all right in there. And he wasn't. So, taps, great job from Magomedov to weather the early pressure from Danny, keep scrambling, find an opening that let him secure a really big win. And he gets it, and he stays relevant kind of just outside of this title picture in Bellator now.
I always find it interesting when I pick against a Magomedov, and I'm like, I wonder how this is going to go. and you know, picking a Magomedov to get out wrestled, I thought, in the end, sort of like the Derrick Lewis fight, it's fucking dumb. It was a bad decision. It wasn't great. And Danny Sabatello had his moments early. I mean, there was one sequence where he like picked him up and dropped him on his ass, and you know, looking like he kind of was going to have him in trouble, and worked towards his back and wrestled him. I mean, it was definitely a wrestling match at that point for quite some time. But Magomedov found his groove, man, and I think he even said, he's like, we wrestle all the time. Like, whatever you're trying to do in here is cool, but I'm always wrestling. So it's, you know, and it looked like it. It looked like something where he was at no point was he panicking. At no point did he really seem like he was unable to answer whatever it was that Danny Sabatello had for him. And Danny Sabatello got caught, man. They were still dry, right? There was no sweat to really to slide off of, and everything that Danny Sabatello tried to do to get out of that guillotine was not working. And he got caught. First submission loss of his career, if I'm understanding that right. And it was a big spot for Magomedov to be in. So good for him.
All right. Andrei Koreshkov, split decision victory over Lorenz Larkin. Omar, give us your take.
Man, this fight was rough. I don't even really know how I scored this fight. I'm going to be completely honest with you. It was a very, very tough fight to score. I felt like Koreshkov had a lot more of the control. I also thought he had a little bit more of the stand-up in certain situations. I thought the further the fight went on, I thought the more that Lorenz kind of found his timing and found his groove. But it sort of got into this. I thought Koreshkov had it early, second round kind of here and there, and then I thought Lorenz had the third round. But it was a close, very close fight, probably just as close as their first fight. I think the first fight was also a split decision, right?
Yep, other way. Yep.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's rough to watch them fight because it's a very difficult. That's one of those fights that as a judge I would hate to have to do, because it was very difficult watching that fight to try to figure out who really won it, because it was close, super close.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the firefight I hoped it would be. There was a lot of grinding and wrestling attempts from Koreshkov. He had a great first round. He managed the range really well. He ripped the leg of Lorenz, and he mixed in that takedown late. So it was a nice opening round for him. He definitely took that one. Round 2 is the swing round and the round where there's some debate, but I think Koreshkov got it. I think he did enough. He did well in the early striking exchanges, and then as soon as Lorenz had any success in them, he just clinched Lorenz up and kind of stalled him out. So I thought he won it. It wasn't, the most entertaining strategy ever from him, but he was nullifying Lorenz a lot, and I think it's kind of tough to give that fight to anyone other than Koreshkov. He did get really tired And in the third, I think it certainly went Lorenzo's way. It makes you wonder what would happen if that's a 5-round fight. But it's not. And Koreshkov does enough to get it done, and he avenges the split decision loss with a split decision win. So I guess they'll have to fight again at some point.
All right. Last one. Let's touch on the results from Super Rizin, including Patricio getting knocked out. Mark?
Yeah, so I'll just say very briefly, things of note. Tofik Musayev got back to his knockouting ways. He knocked out Akira Okada in the second round. Juan Archuleta got himself a Rizin bantamweight belt. He won a decision over Hiromasa Ogikubo, as we figured he probably would. So well done. That's a pretty cool accomplishment for him to add to the resume. And then the big one, freaking this weird scenario where Patricio Pitbull is over there with his brother Patricky, and I don't know if it was related to AJ McKee falling off or not, but they were like, you know what, maybe we need a little star power on this card, and apparently he had been saying he'd like to fight if they had something for him, and they booked this fight against Chihiro Suzuki, who is a credentialed kickboxer. He was 10-3, I believe, in MMA coming into this fight. And they book it on whatever it was, 4 days' notice, and he fucking knocks out Pitbull. So it's got to be the upset of the year at this point, I would imagine. I'm not sure what the betting odds were, but, I mean, it's in the running for certain. And he knocked him out beautifully and clean. So a wild result that I don't think anyone saw coming. I feel like it's not getting talked about that much because it was kind of buried on this random Super Rizin card that wasn't part of the Bellator broadcast, and maybe not that many people saw it. But, like, Patricio Pitbull just lost 2 fights in a row, and one of them he got knocked the fuck out. It's pretty crazy.
It was weird that Patricio Pitbull was fighting, like, on the intermission portion of this card.
Yeah, I think it's because it was this weird late ad where he wasn't supposed to be on the card, and I guess the Bellator portion of the card was full, and they were like, all right, we'll put you over here. And, things did not go well.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really know anything about Suzuki like that. And to be honest, watching that fight, watching that performance, like, I don't want to, I feel like you guys, the day I came off, or the day I was off sick, you guys were talking about how you guys don't really like to shit on fighters. And, you know, I know Mike was talking about how, you know, he might meet certain people, so he doesn't want to be completely disrespectful. And both of you were like, Omar shits on him, though. Fuck him. He doesn't care. So, I don't want to shit on him because he did something that people don't generally do to Patricio Pitbull. So I don't want to shit on him. But from a technique standpoint, like watching that fight just became a barn brawl. Like it didn't even really get to a really technical point. And Patricio Pitbull played a game where he flipped a coin and he lost that coin flip. Yeah, so it's difficult for me to take too much away from the fight from the Suzuki side as to how good he is, because if I took away Pitbull from that equation and just watched his movement and his technique and things like that, like, I still think Patricio is a better fighter, but he fucked around and he found out. I'll tell you that.
No, I think that's a great take. Like, if you ask me right now, do I think that Suzuki is a top 10 level featherweight in the world? I definitely don't. I mean, maybe we're going to find out he is, but I didn't get that from that performance. I think he just happened to fucking catch him.
Yeah, and good for him. I mean, that's still a tall order to do that.
Oh, God, yeah.
So good for him. But again, from a totality standpoint, I still think that Patricio is just overall a better fighter.
Yeah, if anybody ever made trivia questions about our show and the question came up of, like, who talks the most shit, it would be Omar.
Weird weekend for the Pitbull brothers. Like, Patricky's got to be like, dude, I fucking got it done. I beat Roberto de Souza. Why are you fucking this up and getting knocked out? Like, we should be celebrating right now.
Totally. And Patricky's always
Spoilers,
been like in the shadow.
There is a
Yeah.
Well, there is a little bit of drama that apparently went down behind the scenes after the Rizin event, which we'll get to in the MMA sphere. But
Well, we're here. Why don't we just intro the sphere and you fucking tell us?
we'll
Okay,
get on it then.
our
Let's
next
do it.
segment, here we go. A little segment that we call And News. Take it away.
Oh, I'm not fucking happy.
All right. So we already touched on a couple. We touched on a couple of things already, so we won't revisit them. Kelvin Gastelum news, obviously, is something that we touched on, as well as the Derrick Lewis free agency potentially moving over to PFL, an idea that has now been floating around, also by Kenny Florian, who obviously works for the PFL. So we won't rehash a lot of that stuff. I will, however, go into our next story here, which involves Amanda Serrano and the PFL. So obviously, you guys, if you don't know, Jake Paul, I believe, is technically Amanda Serrano's manager, but is always kind of co-promoted with Jake Paul during a lot of his events, usually is the co-main event of his events, and obviously usually fighting for some sort of title or prestigious award. I think she recently lost to Katie Taylor, if I'm not mistaken, but a very close fight, and still one of the best female fighters around right now. I was completely unaware that girl has fought 3 MMA fights at this point. She is 2-0-1, and she has the 2 wins that she has on her record are submission wins. So, holy shit!
I didn't know that.
I mean, granted, they're against relative nobody. I don't know who any of these folks are.
I had no idea.
Me either. When I was looking at this news, so the news is, let me just break the news. The news is Amanda Serrano signing to PFL. She will be fighting, looks like at the 125-pound division, and it will be part of the super, that super pay-per-view.
Super fight division.
Yeah, the super fight pay-per-view division that they have there. So that's something that she's looking to get into now, obviously with Jake Paul being a part of it as well. But when I was thinking about it, I was like, damn, they're throwing this girl right into the deep end. She's got no experience. I don't even know if she's thrown a leg kick taken down. Bro, she submitted 2 girls, and there was a draw in her first ever MMA fight. So she's got way more experience than I thought. She's got a couple of finishes already. So who's not to say that she might do something really amazing in the PFL? So I'm not going to knock it, especially if she's got a little bit of work already, more than I thought. Clarissa Shields did pretty well, early on in her little MMA experiment as well. So I'm here for it, man. I think it's a very interesting prospect to see how Amanda Serrano does transferring over from boxing, her elite boxing status, to elite MMA. So should be interesting.
For sure.
We have this story here. So a little bit of tea here. Kleber Koik. Mark, do you know who this dude is?
Yeah, he's the dude that Patricio beat at the first Rizin event.
Yes, the former Rizin featherweight champion. Correct.
Yeah.
So Kleber Koik apparently got a run-in with the Pitbull brothers this past weekend. There apparently seems to be some tension between the teams, resulting in who was loyal to who, involving people who had trained the Pitbull brothers, Japanese fighters that had trained the Pitbull brothers. So there's a little bit of drama in there, but specifically this past weekend, after Patricio got knocked out, Patricky apparently looked over at Koik, who was in the front areas, very visible, and he was under the impression that Koik was talking shit about Patricio having gotten knocked out. I believe there's some sort of language barrier there, so they don't really communicate very well, and I think the translator might have gotten a little wild with the translation. But apparently, Patricio or Patricky and him
I doubt there's a language barrier. They're both Brazilian.
I thought there was something. Somebody was in Japanese was saying something according to the
maybe
story.
he speaks Japanese from having been fighting over there for a while, and maybe he was speaking it.
Maybe, and there might have been some translator or some translation, some guy who knew Japanese that was translating things a little fucked up. Maybe. I'm not really sure about the specifics of it, but the long story short, they got into it a little bit. Patricky, there's video of Patricky like shoving the whole shit out of Koik, and obviously I'm sure they were talking shit back and forth or whatever. After that happened, Patricio obviously goes to the back. Patricky, I think, has already won his fight at this point. So they go into the back, and they're in the locker room, and apparently Koik goes to the locker room. And there's obviously 3 different sides to the story, but the side that basically the stories that are being told is that Koik came in kind of snuck Patricky a little bit. Patricky says he got hit from behind. Koik says that he waited for Patricky to turn around and then he front kicked him.
Front kicked?
Either way, he front kicked Patricky. Yeah, no, he teeped him right in the chest, and he got into a brawl with Patricio, I believe. And they got, separated, security and all that other stuff. But apparently there was a whole brawl that happened backstage, which is very like Pride-esque of a story from back in the day. A lot of wild shit used to happen backstage in Pride. So I thought it was really interesting. Who knows if that fight, if they end up getting a rematch somewhere down the line with all of this bad blood, but bad blood there is.
Wow. Didn't hear
that. We have just a couple of little tidbits and then some fight announcements, and then we can move right along. So the nice news about UFC 291 is that 2 million views were apparently seen or are shown for the prelims, and it was the second most viewed event on TV in the Disney era. I should have looked up what was number one because I have no idea. Next on my little tidbit list here, Alex Pereira obviously weighed in this past weekend at 205.5 pounds. Any guesses as to what he ballooned up to the next day?
223.
Mike?
230?
I mean, if this is Price is Right rules, Mark wins. But you're technically closer, Mike. Pereira weighed in at 228 pounds on fight day. Jesus Christ. Izzy weighed like 190 something soaking wet for his light heavyweight debut.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jesus.
He's a big guy.
All right.
Bigger man.
Now we have a couple of fight announcements. He's gigantic. We have some fight announcements here, and then we will move right along. So, sir, we are starting off here with Sungwoo Choi versus Jarno Aarons. That has been added to UFC Singapore card on August 26th. Daniel Zellhuber versus Christos Giagos has been added to Noche UFC, which I think is the Mexican card, if I'm not mistaken. That's going on September 16th. Daniel Rodriguez versus Santiago Ponzinibbio was added also to that card on September 16th. Okay. Totally forgot D-Rod was already booked, so that first thing was stupid. Tan Ige versus Bryce Mitchell will be co-headlining UFC's September 23rd event. Along that card, Rafael Fiziev versus Mateusz Gamrot will also be headlining, actually, that event. Drew Dober versus Ricky Glenn has been added to UFC's October 7th event. Edson Barboza versus Sadiq Youssef has been added to the UFC's October 14th event, along with my man's Adrian Yanez versus... Any guesses? I didn't send this one to you on purpose.
Can I look at a list of bantamweights real quick?
It's a ranked fight. I believe he's a ranked fighter still.
Oh, that was a big clue. God, a ranked fighter? They should have fucking calmed down a little bit with him.
If he's not ranked, he's just outside. I can't
Chris
remember.
Gutierrez.
Jonathan Martinez.
I was debating between the two. Fuck.
Yep, Jonathan Martinez. And so that one's going down October 14th. Next on the list, we have Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. We've obviously already talked about that. That one's been added to the October 21st card for UFC 294. And last but not least, Vitor Petrino versus Modestas Bukauskas has been added to UFC's November 4th card. And that is all we have for you this week.
Wow.
Very nice.
Tremendous.
Very nice.
All right. It is getting later and later. So let us now look ahead.
Facts.
To this coming weekend's
so
MMA action. We have PFL and UFC happening. Let's start this off with PFL 7. The 2023 PFL playoffs are upon us. This event will feature the playoffs for the featherweights and light heavyweights in this year's PFL season. Let us begin in the light heavyweight division with we have... I'm going to butcher this fucking guy's name. Impa Kasangane and Martin
You don't
Hamlet.
remember him from the UFC?
Kasangane.
Impa Kasangane.
Gasangane. God. Okay, Hamlet. A 31-year-old out of Norway, 12-4 as a pro. Coming off 3 wins professionally. Kasangane. 29-year-old out of North Carolina. 13-3. 4-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Mark, give us your take and your pick.
All right, so welcome to the PFL playoffs at featherweight and light heavyweight, featuring Rob Wilkinson and Thiago Santos and Brendan Loughnane and Movlid Habulaev. No, none of them are here. Literally none of them. So this did not work out quite how the PFL wanted. A couple guys lost. A couple guys got only one guy lost, Loughnane. Movlid got hurt. Wilkinson, Santos got suspended. So, yeah, some of the bigger names are not here, but we press on nonetheless. So the first semifinal match that Mike teed up here is at light heavyweight between Martin Hamlet, who is the dog at plus 180, and Impa Kasanganay, who is the favorite at minus 240. Hamlet's 2 inches taller. The reach is the same. Hamlet's the more proven commodity in the PFL. He's 6-3 in the organization. He has some good wins. But Impa has been around. He's had 4 fights in the UFC. He was 2-2 there. He was 1-1 at middleweight. Then he dropped and was 1-1 at welterweight. Then he joins the PFL and pops up at light heavyweight and is actually 3-0. And it looks like he may have actually found the best weight class for his skills because his speed has shined here. And it's going to shine for as long as this fight goes on whenever there's space between these two fighters, because he will have a big advantage in that department. Hamlet has to close the distance. He has to wrap Kasanganay up and try to out-wrestle him, and he certainly can. But I'm going to side with the more dynamic and more exciting fighter, maybe because I want to see it, but I think it can happen. I think Hamlet may be a little too one-dimensional, and I will say Kasanganay catches him. Round 2 TKO.
Yep. I absolutely agree. I'm actually also on the Kasanganay train as well. I don't know if you've seen that man's hands. That man's hand is gigantic. Like, getting punched by him has got to be fucking the worst. I think Hamlet's a decent fighter. I don't think he's anything, I don't think he's anything that Kasanganay can't deal with. I'll just put it like that. I think he's a little bit more skilled, definitely a little bit more experienced and seasoned at this point. So I'm going to go Kasanganay as well with a second round TKO.
I don't know these guys that well, but fuck it. I'll roll with you guys. I'll say Kasanganay. Knockout round 1. I'll say knockout first minute. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Featherweights, Gabriel Braga taking on Chris Wade. Okay. Braga, the 25-year-old out of Rio, undefeated, 11-0. He's 3-0, obviously, now in the PFL. Taking on Chris, the Long Island Killer, Wade, the 35-year-old out of Long Island.
Name. I never even realized that.
23-9 as a professional. Coming off a win against Ryoji Kudo back in June. Omar, go.
Yeah, does Chris Wade... I wonder if Chris Wade trains out of Matt Serra's gym or Ray Longo's gym or something like that. I would imagine they're probably close by, if not.
I feel like I've tried to look this up before.
Sherdog says he trains at East Islip Kickboxing and Long Island MMA.
Yeah. So
I don't think that's them.
No, it's not them.
Yeah. Well, either way, man, Chris Wade is a decent fighter. I know he's had some trouble, obviously, with some of the elite guys in the PFL, the Bubba Jenkinses, the Brendan Loughnanes. But I still think he's a very good fighter. Gabriel Braga is the one that has the momentum. Obviously, he's got the undefeated record. He's had his success already in the PFL, some pretty good fights, especially his last fight against Marlon Moraes. We all know how that went. But Marlon was also at the tail end of his career, I guess, really. So I don't want to put too much stock in that, especially when you're talking about somebody who is continuously trying to work on himself, continuously trying to get better. And as much as I like Gabriel Braga, I think he does have a lot of potential. I think I'm going to go with Chris Wade here. I just think he'll be able to maneuver it around, and I think he'll be able to use his ground game a little bit more than Braga is probably either expecting or able to handle. So I'm going to go with Chris Wade here, and I'm going to go with by decision.
I will go next, and I will say that I'm going to go with the hometown boy. Sorry, Mark. Sorry for the delay. I don't always want to go last. That's why I feel left out. I'm going to go with the Long Island Killer. I'm going to go with our hometown boy, Chris Wade. I'm going to say Chris Wade gets it done by UD. Mark, now you may go.
All right, very tight odds. Braga is the slight favorite. He's minus 125. Chris Wade is even money at plus 100. Wade is 1 inch taller. Braga has a 2-inch reach advantage. This is the one that was supposed to be Movlid Habulaev against Braga. Obviously, Movlid was the favorite to win it all at featherweight this year. Unfortunately, he had to drop out, and Chris Wade, who kind of seems to never go away, is back again and has a shot to make the finals here. And as the odds dictate, it should be a really close matchup. Braga is 11-0. He just knocked out Marlon Moraes, as Omar mentioned. I'm not sure what we should take from that, but before that, he beat Jesus Pinedo, who was the man that just beat Brendan Loughnane. So that says something. However, I don't think Braga has ever fought a dogged wrestler like a Chris Wade, a guy who will be as relentless to work in the wrestling as we know Chris Wade will be. So the question for me is just going to be how Braga handles that. Can he keep Wade off him? Can he work his kicks? And maybe I regret doubting him. Obviously, he has not lost yet, but I'm going to say Chris Wade can edge it out. I think he'll be relentless enough to earn enough control time to win this fight. And even though he has been a bit up and down, you have to be pretty damn solid to beat Chris Wade if you look through his resume. So I will say 29-28 UD for Wade.
Okay. Co-main time, PFL 7 playoffs, featherweights and light heavyweights. Back to the light heavyweight side of this equation. Joshua Silveira taking on Tai Flores. So Joshua Coninha Silveira out of Miami, Florida, the 30-year-old, 11-1, coming off back-to-back wins coming into this playoff. Taking on Tai Big Medicine Flores, the 29-year-old out of Denver, 13-4. Omar, start us off.
So the fight's really interesting. I do think that Silveira is the better fighter overall. I think Tai Flores gets away with being a dog. I think he gets away with his wrestling, being heavy on top, being really heavy on top, if we're being completely honest. He looks really awful to be under. But I just think that Silveira is going to have a little bit more apt when it comes to being able to keep him off the ground and then just really being able to put it together on the feet. If there's one thing about Tai Flores I'm not a huge fan of is his comfort level on the feet. He just seems like he, if he's not getting beat on a little bit, he's trying to figure out how to get the fight to the ground. And against guys who are not, skilled enough to keep him off of him, he's very likely to stay on top of you throughout the fight. I just don't think that's going to happen here. So I'm going to go with a finish here by Silveira, second round TKO.
I like it. I too will go with the more talented Silveira. I think everything you said was spot on. So I will go Silveira. I'll say round 3 knockout.
Yeah, he's a big favorite. He is minus 500. Tai Flores is plus 350. Measurements, Flores is 2 inches taller. The reach is the same. As Omar said, Tai Flores can wrestle. He wins a lot of decisions behind that and being heavy on top. But Josh Silveira can wrestle, and he can also do everything else. I don't think this one boils down to much more than that. I think Josh Silveira is the favorite to be this year's PFL light heavyweight champion, with Rob Wilkinson obviously suspended and out of the picture. I think the two of them would have been a great fight if we had gotten to see it. And I think he is going to style on Tai Flores here and do it quickly. I will take Josh Silveira round 1 submission.
Nice. Okay, main event.
Guys, I have to point this out really quick. I'm sorry. Does anybody know what Koninha means? Is this guy's Silveira's nickname?
It sounds
Because
Portuguese.
everything everything I'm looking up says it means pussy. So I'm really hoping this dude did not make that his nickname. 'Cause
That is very funny.
it's just that can't be right. It can't be right.
I will say this.
I don't know. Maybe
I'm always a little surprised that there aren't more just like standard good nicknames in MMA. There's nicknames like this. Or like fucking, what was the guy who was Creepy Bob Ross? Like, you get shit like that.
Oh, well, that's fucked. That was a genius one that I think the fans made up. I don't even think that was Violent Rob Ross.
I'm just surprised that there aren't
was
more
from fans,
nicknames
I'm pretty
that
sure.
are like the bear,
Maybe not.
the this, the lion, the wolf, the tiger. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
wants-
Chimaev is the wolf.
Yeah, he is.
The Chechen wolf.
Yeah. And that's a great nickname, man. All right. Here we go. Bubba Jenkins, whose nickname is I'm a Bad Man. His nickname is I'm a Bad Man.
Yes, it's one of the best.
Taking on Jesus himself. I'm making my fucking self
I
laugh.
was going off the rails.
Jesus Pinedo.
Delivery.
Can I just say for a second, I love this from the Latino community. So what white folks do when white folks want to do like a Christian first name for their kids, are like Faith, Hope, maybe Destiny. Like Latino folks are
You
just like,
take
no,
him
no,
right out the fucking Bible.
We're going Jesus. You've never met a white guy named Jesus. Hey,
No, we
hey
use
man,
the
how you
gospel
doing, Michael?
writers. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. They're like, yeah, we're going straight for Jesus.
Nah, man.
Yeah.
The Latin community, there's
Hispanics.
Jesus.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway,
They go for the heavy hitters in the Latin community.
Omar, what does Pinedo's nickname mean? El Mudo.
It means the mute.
The Mute. Wow. Okay, Bubba Jenkins, the 35-year-old out of California, 21-6 as a pro with 7 knockouts on his record, coming off of wins against Chris Wade and Sungbin Jo, making it into these playoffs. He will be standing across from Jesus Pinedo, the 27-year-old out of Lima, Peru, 21-6 with 1 draw, 12 knockouts on his record, coming off of that stunning knockout victory over Brendan Loughnane. Mark, why don't you start us off? Give us your take and your pick of I'm a Bad Man versus Jesus.
All right, Bubba is a big favorite. He is minus 400. Jesus Pinedo is plus 300. I figured Bubba would be favored. I didn't expect it to be quite that wide. The measurements, 4 inches of height and 2 inches of reach on the Pinedo side. Jesus Pinedo obviously just KO'd the defending champ Brendan Loughnane in like 2 minutes. He's won 5 of his last 6, and he comes into this one with a lot of momentum on his side. He is much bigger than Bubba Jenkins, height and reach, as I just pointed out. So it's set up somewhat nicely for him to try to pull this off. I am not going to pick it. I'm not picking against my boy Bubba Jenkins. He could definitely end up getting hurt on the feet. Pinedo has 12 knockouts, as you just said. But Bubba Jenkins seems like he's still getting better at 35 years old. He made it to the final last year looking the best he had ever looked. Did get beat, obviously, by Loughnane. Then he returns this year. He trounces Chris Wade, who had beaten him the first time they fought a few years back. Beats Sungbin Jo with relative ease en route to these playoffs. And I don't think he's going to be stopped right now. I think we are going to end up with a Bubba Jenkins and Chris Wade trilogy for $1 million. More confident in Bubba getting there than I am in Wade getting there. But I think the wrestling of Bubba is going to be too much and carry the day here. Bubba Jenkins, UD.
Tell me again the odds.
Yeah.
400 and 300.
Who's the favorite? Bubba?
Jesus.
Bubba.
Okay. Go ahead, Omar.
You going, Mike?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with Mark. I think Bubba Jenkins is just too much the veteran. I'm going to go against my usual picking the younger fighter theme here. Loved what I saw in Pinedo against Lockname, but I'm gonna go with Bubba Jenkins here. I'll say unanimous decision, and he marches on.
I'm going to go with the underdog here. One, I just think we need to make it interesting. Bubba Jenkins, I think, is a smart pick. I think it's the one that makes sense on paper, especially when you consider how good his grappling actually is. His actual ability to get people taken down is pretty high. So I think for me, I just think there is opportunity for Jesus to be able to stop at least a couple of those takedowns and really try to put it on him. I don't take away too much from the Brendan Loughnane loss just because I think he got caught more than anything. It's very easy, I think, to do MMA math in this specific situation, considering Brendan Loughnane is on both of their resumes. Jesus has got a win against him. Bubba's got a loss against him. So it's, it can be easy to fall into that trap. But I think more than anything, I think Pinedo just has tools to beat him. I just think he needs to find the right opportunity to use those tools. There is a real distinct possibility that Bubba Jenkins rides him for 3 rounds. That is wholly possible. But I think Pinedo finds an opportunity. So I'm going to go with him. I do think that he does need to finish Bubba Jenkins if he needs to win this fight. I don't think he wins a decision against him. So I'll say second round KO.
Okay. That does it for our PFL 7 preview. And now let's hop over to the UFC side of things this weekend. UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Font. Font, I believe, was a last-minute replacement, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, when did that break? Maybe about
Supposed to be
10 or so days ago, something like that. So like maybe almost 2 weeks of notice, something along those lines.
supposed to be
Maybe even more. Maybe it was 3 weeks of notice.
It's supposed to be Corey versus Umar.
I know
Magomedov.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might have come out the week that I wasn't here.
I think that's
So
right.
props to Rob Font for stepping in here. Let's see. Let us start at the very bottom of the card, the opening bout of this fight night in the flyweight division. Ode Osbourne versus Asu Almabaev. I'll just do the undercard ones more quickly. Ode Osbourne, the Jamaican sensation, not bad. 31 years old, out of Wisconsin, 12-5, coming off a win against Charles Johnson. Asu, the 29-year-old, out of Kazakhstan, 17-2 as a pro with 8 submissions. Add 3 knockouts to that. Has not lost a fight since 2017, making his UFC debut. Omar, why don't you start us off?
What was
Yeah,
quick
dude.
about that? That was the same intro you always do.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting fight, man. Ode Osbourne has kind of been a little hot and cold in the UFC. He's had some great performances. He's had some mid performances. But this, I don't really know much about Almabaev. What I do know is his resume is ridiculous. Now, he doesn't have the names attached to his resume, obviously, to show any kind of value. But if you look at the way that he is finishing these fights and completing these fights, whether it's by decision, whether it's by finish, like it just seems like he is putting shit on people. And I think that Ode Osbourne has a tendency to shit the bed when guys are putting things on him, especially if they are more complete than he is. In other words, being able to use the ground game, use the striking game, and things like that. So I have a little bit more confidence in this new up and comer making his debut in this spot, and I'm gonna go with Almabaev, and I think he finishes him. I'm gonna go with second round KO.
Okay.
I don't know who's going, Mike, me or you.
You go.
Should I assume I'm going? All right. Okay, Almabaev is the favorite, minus 195. Ode is plus 155 as the dog. 2 inches of height on the Osbourne side. No reach listed for Almabaev, oddly. But yeah, I guess it's not surprising he's the favorite because he's a real prospect. You'll find him ranked fairly high on some like world flyweight lists. He is 17-2. He's coming over from Brave. He beat Zach Makovsky over there, which says something about his legitimacy if you remember Zach from the UFC. And he gets an interesting test in his debut against Ode because Ode is a skilled guy. He's a bit up and down, as Omar said. I've seen actually that he's been training lately over with the Serra-Longo guys, so that's interesting. I'm sure he is looking to prepare for the wrestling that Almabaev brings. And Osbourne is already pretty good at defending the takedown and scrambling, so if he can do that and keep this thing on the feet, then it's very likely that it ends up going his way. I'm torn on if he can do that, but I think I'm going to land on saying there's just enough control that Almabaev manages to get on the ground to eke this thing out. So I will say it is a UD in his favor.
All right. Let's go on. Let's see.
You didn't pick, Michael.
Oh, my bad. I'm going to go with the up-and-comer, the Phenom, who's 17-2, making his UFC debut, Asu Almabaev. I will say that he gets it done by knockout stunningly in the first round, putting the flyweight division on notice. Okay, in the featherweight division, we have Sean, the Sniper Woodson, taking on Dennis. How do you say his last name?
Wait, I didn't even know that. They found a fight for Sean Woodson? He lost... wait, who do you say he's fighting?
Bazooka?
I mean, it's not Sherdog.
Yeah, that's not... Because he lost 2 different opponents, and I thought he was just done. But I guess they got someone now. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, guy making it.
So
apparently making it. It's on. I'm checking Sherdog and Wikipedia.
Another debut.
Debuting fighter Dennis
Bazooka.
Bazooka or Bazooka?
I don't know. Out of New York, New York. Look at that.
He's a New Yorker.
He's fighting out of Longo Weidman.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
interesting.
Outside of the UFC, he made his pro debut for Bellator, getting a win for Bellator by knockout in the first round. I don't know why I didn't fight for Bellator ever again. That's kind of weird. Has fights and wins on Ring of Combat, which is a big-time New York promoter. He was on Dana White's Contender Series, Ring of Combat again, Contender Series the second time, and UAE. And most recently, Cage Fury. So all big promotions and a very impressive resume for Dennis. 11-2 as a pro now, 5 finishes. Welcoming him will be Sean Woodson, the Sniper, 31 years old, out of St. Louis, Missouri. 9-1 as a pro. Add 1 draw to that. Coming off of a draw against Luis Saldana. I'm sure this is new to both of you guys, as well as to me, seeing that it's a new fight with Bazooka. But let's throw out some picks. I'll go first. I'll say Woodson turns him away. I'll say by knockout, handing Bazooka his first knockout loss.
I'm not really sure why I'm not totally sold on Woodson yet. He wins. He knows how to win fights. He's beaten Terrence McKinney, obviously. Like I'm not sure why I'm not completely sold on him. I think I'm going to go Bazooka here. I do like that he fights out of Longo Weidman. I would imagine he's got a pretty good takedown game, a pretty good striking game as well, probably pretty well-rounded. Looks like he's got a couple finishes on his record as well out of the 11 wins he has. So I'm going to go Bazooka here. I don't think he gets the finish, but I do think he's able to take down Woodson and kind of work a little bit. So I'm going to go with at least 2 rounds out of 3 for Bazooka.
Yeah, I'm torn. I don't know Bazooka well. I do love that camp. So seeing him have a good record coming out of that camp is pretty encouraging. I'm actually looking quick to see if they even have odds up for this fight. They do. One site. What is it? FanDuel has it. Minus 200 Woodson and plus 150 Bazooka. Yeah, I kind of want to go with Bazooka. I like that he is hot coming in. I wish that I was a bit more familiar with him, but I think I'm going to stick with Woodson. The size for him is just so much. He's so freaking long. He's got what I just see, like a 7-inch reach advantage in this fight. And he does have skills. I didn't love the way he fought the last fight against Luis Saldana, but before that, he had been looking pretty impressive. So I will say Sean Woodson wins a close decision.
Okay. Let's go over to the...
Omar, I forgot to write you down. You said Bazooka?
Yeah, by UD.
Okay, men's flyweight division. Cody Durden taking on Jake Hadley. Durden, 32-year-old out of Georgia, 15-4 with one draw, 3 consecutive wins coming into this weekend. 6 knockouts and 5 submission victories for him. Taking on Jake Hadley. Nickname is White Kong, the 26-year-old out of England, 10-1 with 8 finishes coming off back-to-back wins in the UFC, both of which are finishes. So this fight, going to be fireworks. I'll pick first. I'm going to take Jake Hadley. I think he is the more dynamic and more dangerous guy stepping in there. Yes, this is going to be fireworks, but I think that Jake Hadley is going to be the one having his hand raised in the end. I'll say he gets it done by submission in round 1. Who goes?
Mike, when you finish, toss it to one of us so we can just flow.
Mark.
Okay, Hadley is minus 200. Cody Durden is plus 160. They're the same height. Hadley will have a 3-inch reach advantage, which is a decent amount at flyweight. They are retesting the prospect that is Jake Hadley here. He's put together a couple good wins. He's looked impressive. Now he gets another real test. It was actually supposed to be Tagir Ulanbekov, who also fell off this card. Cody Durden stepped in fairly recently here. But he's still a good test. He's a scrapper. He'll push the pace. He can wrestle, and he can grind. Jake Hadley's going to have to work to keep Cody Durden off of him. When they are separated, I do love the boxing advantage of Jake Hadley. I love the way he mixes it up to the body and head. I do think he can land on Durden. And although I'm a bit torn, I will go with Hadley here. Yes, he struggled with Nascimento in his debut, but Nascimento is definitely a better pure grappler than Durden is. And I think with Durden, Hadley can find enough separation, even if he does get taken down a time or two, to land some big shots. And I will go as far as saying that he finds a finish on a guy who does not really get knocked out. But I will say Jake Hadley, round 3, TKO.
Yeah, I actually think that Durden's going to want to play on the ground a little bit more than I think we might even be expecting him to. And I think that Hadley has... I think Hadley has the ability to submit him. I think that there's going to be probably a nice exchange on the ground. I think both of them are very well-rounded fighters, and I think that they're both going to have their moments rolling around. But I think in the end, I think Jake Hadley is just going to have more control, and I think he's just going to have a little bit more aggression on there, down there. And I think he comes out on top with a submission. So I'm going to go with a second round submission win.
Okay. Moving on to the featherweight division, we have Billy Quarantillo taking on Damon Action Jackson. So Billy Q, 34 years old, out of Tampa, Florida, baby. Represent. 17-5, 13 finishes. Looking to get back at the win column after getting knocked out by Mr. Edson Barboza. He will be standing across from Damon Action Jackson, the 34-year-old out of Dallas, Texas, 22-5 with one draw and one no contest. 19 finishes, 15 of them submission victories. He's also looking to get back in the win column after getting knocked out by Dan Ige. Omar, start us off.
Excuse me. So Billy Q actually has come by the gym before, so I can't really pick against Billy Q, I think, at this point. I don't really think it's allowed. So I'm going to stick with Billy Q here, man. The fact is, this is a really good fight. This is probably, I think this is one of the fights on the short list of Fight of the Night for this event. I think it's going to be a scrap from beginning to end. You know, Billy Quarantillo had a good fight with Edson Barboza up until the moment he got his, face broken and got caught. But it was a good fight. I don't think Damon Jackson has that type of dynamic finishes, but he is definitely a grinder. He's definitely somebody who will work to beat you down. And I think in that kind of a fight, Billy Quarantillo is not easy to put out. I think they're going to be grinding on each other for the entirety of those 3 rounds, and I mean that in the less weird way as humanly possible. But I think Billy Quarantillo is going to edge out this fight, and I think it's going to be a unanimous decision. I go with Billy Q by unanimous decision.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the odds are for this fight. I would guess. I like guessing.
I'll share them.
It's got to be.
If you like.
Okay, sure.
Oh,
okay, go.
I'm sorry. Let's do that.
I would
No,
guess.
I think it's a pickup fight. I think it's a pickup fight.
Yeah, I think they're very close. I would imagine they're close. What are they?
Not as close as you might imagine. Billy Q minus 180. Damon Jackson plus 145.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that's not what I thought at all.
So competitive, but certainly not a pick'em.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess that makes me feel good about my pick because I am going to go with Billy Q, baby. Yeah, I think he's just going to be better on the feet. And he has never been submitted. So even though Damon Jackson's bread and butter is getting his opponent to the ground and working for that submission, I think that Billy Q is going to do what he needs to do to stay out of those hairy situations. And I think he's going to sail to a unanimous decision victory. Mark?
1 inch of height and reach for Damon Jackson here. This is a great matchup. I'm really interested to see what this one looks like. I don't know why it's as low on the card as it is. It feels like it should be over a few of those fights that are on the main card. I think it could be a war potentially. Jackson starts hotter. Billy Q usually tends to start a bit slow, so I expect Jackson to look good out of the gate, but Billy Q is the king of using pace to take over fights late, and I expect he can do that here too. So it's the middle of the fight where this one really feels like it might be up for grabs. And I think what I'm going to guess is just that Billy Q's grappling is good enough to not be controlled for more than a round against the Leech. And I think he'll otherwise be pushing a pace. He's certainly the crisper striker of the two, as you guys have mentioned. And I think he can do enough to take 2 of these. So I will say Billy Q, EUD.
Nice.
Okay. Moving up to the welterweight division, we have Jeremiah Wells taking on Carlston Harris. Jeremiah Wells, 36 years old, out of Pennsylvania, 12-2 with 1 draw, 9 finishes, has not lost a fight since March of 2019. He's on a 6-fight win streak and is undefeated thus far in the UFC, 4-0 in the UFC. Going up against Carlston Harris, the 36-year-old out of Guyana, 18-5 as a pro with 10 finishes, 5 subs, 5 knockouts. Most recently defeated Jared Gooden back in March of this year. He is 3-1 in the UFC. Mark, start us off. Give us a take and pick. Take a pick.
So tight odds here. Jeremiah Wells is minus 135. Carlston Harris is plus 110. 3 inches of height and 2 inches of reach on the Harris side. And I'm honestly a bit undecided on how good I think either of these guys are. So I'm very curious to see who steps up here. I think that the straight power shots from Wells are potentially a big factor here, as they always are. Harris is a bit more fluid of a striker, but he's also a bit open. His grappling is also a threat, but you wonder if Wells is defensively strong enough to mostly keep himself off the ground. So, I don't know. It's a close one, but I think I'm just more willing to trust Jeremiah Wells based on what I've seen up to this point. I'm going to say it's a big straight from him in an exchange where he just beats Harris to the chin and gets a finish. I will say round 2 knockout for Wells.
Omar, go.
I have a little bit more confidence in Harris. I think Harris is a really interesting fighter, carries a lot of power behind him. I think he has submission skills as well. I'm not... Jeremiah Wells, I feel like, is another one, just like... what's this kid's name we were just talking about? Just like Sean Woodson, where I feel like I should be sold on him, but like I'm not yet, and I don't really have a reason why. But Carlson Harris has always struck me as somebody who's got some good skills behind him, so I'm going to ride with Harris for this one. I do think this is a close fight. I thought those odds that you just said were probably very similar to the Billy Q Damon Jackson fight, or we're thought that's what that was. Anyway, I'm going to go with Carlson Harris here. I'm going to say that he is able to put out Jeremiah Wells. I think they get into a bit of a firefight, and I think Harris is able to put him away. I go with the second round KO.
It's an interesting matchup. These guys are the exact same age. Carlson Harris, 3 or 4 inches taller. But I will go with the power of Jeremiah Wells. I think he's going to put Carlson Harris out. I'll say round 3 knockout.
Nice.
Okay. Getting fun here. Going down to the bantamweights, we have my man's back, Kyler Phillips, taking on Raoni Barcelos. Kyler Matrix Phillips, the 28-year-old out of Phoenix, Arizona, 10-2 as a pro, 7 finishes, coming off of a win against Marcelo Rojo back in February of 2022. That was by armbar. Taking on Raoni Barcelos, the 36-year-old out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. 17-4 as a professional with 10 finishes. He is looking to get back in the win column after getting knocked out by Umar Nurmagomedov back in January of this year. I'll go first because let's just get it out of the way. You know I'm going with my boy, Kyler Phillips, the Steph Curry of MMA. I think he's going to get it done. He's going to say, hey, bantamweight division, did you miss me? So what happened? He got suspended briefly, didn't he, for like 6 months?
He did.
I think suspended and then hurt, or the other way, something like that.
I think before his, at some point, delays. I think before his suspension, he was booked like twice in both of them. I think one time he pulled out with an injury, and another time an opponent had pulled out with an injury. And like next thing you know, the guy hasn't fought in like over a year. Anyhow,
I didn't realize Kyler Phillips and Darius Flowers had both been suspended at the same time for the same shit.
Oh,
huh?
I didn't either.
Yeah, didn't realize that.
I'll say round 1 knockout, Kyler Phillips. Omar, why don't you go?
I think it's an interesting fight because I think Raoni Barcelos has a lot of tools that make him very dangerous. We just haven't really seen the consistency from him to really make him, I think, like an automatic pick, in my opinion, just yet. Kyler Phillips, on the other hand, while he does have a couple losses on his record, I think is a much more dynamic fighter in general, both on the feet and on the ground. Obviously, I think his feet, on the feet and using his hands, I think are more his bread and butter. A lot of spinning attacks, a lot of dexterity in the way he throws his kicks and his punches. I think he's a bit more talented in that aspect. I do think Raoni Barcelos probably presents a lot more power, a lot more sort of a bruiser kind of approach to the game at this point, especially if he's not on the ground. I think once it goes down to the ground, he's a lot more of a submission threat, but I don't think that Kyler lets it get to that point. And I think when it's all said and done, I don't know if he knocks out Barcelos, but I do think he puts on a bit of a beating on him. So I'm going to go with Kyler Phillips here by unanimous decision.
All right, Phillips a 2-1 favorite at -200.
Nice.
Barcelos is +170 as the dog. 1 inch of height and 5 inches of reach for Kyler Phillips.
Wow.
And for me, that was my deciding factor in this fight because, as you guys know, I love the skill set of both of these guys. I've always kind of touted Raoni as someone who I thought was a bit underrated. So it's very hard for me to pick against either one of them, but 5 inches of reach for a guy who is as dynamic of a striker as Kyler Phillips is enough to sway me in that direction. So I do think it'll be close. Houndie can do it all. He may look to grapple here, but Phillips is no slouch in that department either. And I think that reach will be enough of a differentiator for him to find the bigger moments in the fight, land some of the bigger shots, and manage to win it on points. Also, Barcelos is 36, and we may be seeing him slow down a bit. I'm not sure yet, but we may. And Phillips is 28 and in his prime. So I will say Kyler Phillips, UD.
Nice. Great pick. Okay, let's go up to the lightweight division
Another one
now.
that feels like it should be on the main card.
Yeah, for sure. Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Ludovic Klein. So Bahamondes, Omar, how do you pronounce his nickname? La Huala?
La Jaula. It
La
means
Jaula.
the cage.
Oh, baby. The 25-year-old out of Santiago, Chile, 14-4 with 10 finishes, 9 of them knockouts. He is 3-1 in the UFC after winning on Contender Series. Two of those 3 victories in the UFC were finishes. And he'll be standing across from Ludovic, Mr. Highlight Klein, the 28-year-old out of Slovakia. He's 19-4-1 with 16 finishes, coming off of a draw against Jai Herbert. Mark, start us off this time.
Ignacio favored at minus 220. Ludovic Klein is plus 180. 8 inches of height and 3.5 inches of reach on the Bahamondes side. 8 inches of height is friggin' monstrous. Klein is a former featherweight who honestly has looked okay since moving up to lightweight, but now he runs into a really tricky size matchup here. And for a guy with the kicks of Bahamondes to be 8 inches taller is going to be a really, really tricky obstacle to overcome for Ludovic Klein. So, he's a tough guy. He's skilled all around. He'll definitely work to get in that phone booth range. I could absolutely see him look to wrestle, which he's been showing more and more. But I got to lean toward Bahamondes. I think he can do enough damage, manage the range, score with the leg kicks, land with the hands even once Klein, starts getting worried about the kicks and win this on the card. So I will say UD for Bahamondes.
Omar, go.
Yeah, I think Bahamondes is just I think he's a more dynamic striker overall, a more dynamic fighter. I really enjoyed his last few performances. Obviously, the one that got him a little bit of notoriety, I think more than any of them, was the Roosevelt Roberts fight, where he spinning back kicked that kid right in his face. And Roosevelt Roberts, who has actually been doing pretty well on The Ultimate Fighter so far. I know he recently lost, I think, in the last couple episodes or whatever, but he was doing pretty well up until that point. I'm sure we'll see him back in the UFC sooner rather than later now. But Bahamondes is a really good fighter, man, and he's got really nice technique. He looks really good when he's fighting. I have a little bit more confidence in him overall to get it done. So I'm going to go Bahamondes here. I do think he can catch Ludovic Klein, and I think he can put him out. So I'm going to go with Bahamondes by KO round 3.
I like that pick a lot. Striking prowess plus size. I'm going to go with Bahamondes as well. He's a bit of a knockout machine, man, with nine knockouts. He's a finisher. There's probably going to be some fireworks in this fight, man, because Klein is a finisher in his own right. Only 3 of his 19 wins have gone the distance. That being said, for the reasons I stated, I will be taking Bahamondes. I'll say round 2 TKO. I don't think he's going to put him out with one shot, but I think he's going to overwhelm him with his size and with his strikes. I'll say the referee's going to have to intervene, and Bahamondes will have his hand raised. Let's go now to the light heavyweight division with Tanner Boser taking on Alexa Camor. So, Boser, the bulldozer, the 32-year-old out of Alberta, Canada, 20-10-1 with 12 finishes, 11 of them knockouts. Very much looking to get back in the win column after losing 2 in a row to Rodrigo Nascimento and Ian Cutelaba back in April. He'll be standing across from Mr. Alexa Camor. the 27-year-old out of Ohio. He's 6-2 as a pro, with 5 of those 6 victories coming by way of knockout. After winning on Contender Series, he won his first fight in the UFC and then had lost the next 2, so he also is looking to get back in the win column. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick.
My take is, this is probably the least interesting fight on the card for me. That is my take. I am not a huge fan of either guy. I've said it before. I'll continue to say it for those of you who think I'm just a hater. I like technique. I like watching guys with crisp technique and purpose behind what they're doing. I'm not a huge fan of winging sloppy shit, which you get a lot at heavyweight, which is going to happen, and I leave room for that to be the case. But a lot of times it's like watching 2 rhinos just like run into each other and just cause a massive explosion. And I think that's what you're going to get here. Just 2 guys running at each other, winging shots, just kind of seeing what happens. Tanner Boser has never struck me as a guy who's had really high-level technique, even high-level IQ when it comes to being inside of a fight. And so far from what I've seen from K-Moore, I would suggest very similar things. I think he's also still very, the experience it seems like he has on paper is not a ton. And I think it showed in his last couple performances against people like William Knight and Nikolai Negumereanu. We almost went into a really bad spot there. Really bad spot. But we didn't. But long story short, I don't really trust either one of these guys to win. But obviously somebody's going to have to. I'm going to go with K-Moore here just because I have less confidence in Boser overall. So I'll go with K-Moore by unanimous decision.
Bro, turn that into a clip.
I'll go while you're recovering, Mike. Boser favored -165. K-Moore +135 as the dog.
Okay.
1 inch of height and 1.5 inches of reach for the former heavyweight in Tanner Boser. If Boser can't beat Alexa K-Moore, then I don't think this move to light heavyweight is going to be too worthwhile for him. Because to me, this is a guy he should beat. I haven't been hugely impressed with K-Moore as of yet. Boser, I actually think, is a pretty decent kickboxer. It may not be the prettiest, but he's fairly effective. He can wrestle if needed. He's fast on his feet. I think he should be able to score on K-Moore with some regularity. I can't think of the word I want to say here. The caveat, thank you, there we go. The caveat is that K-Moore hasn't fought in like 2 years, which obviously could be a knock on him, but also could mean that maybe he has made some big improvements. He is still a fairly young guy. So maybe we see that, and I realize that Boser was a dumb pick, but I will go with Tanner Boser to win AUD.
And I will take the opposite pick. I'm going to go with a younger prospect. According to Dominic Cruz, there's no such thing as ring rust, so fuck that. I will take Alexa K-Moore. I'll say he gets the knockout win, stamping his return to the light heavyweight division. I'll say round 1 knockout. Okay, here we go. Back down in weight to the featherweight division. Does this guy say his name Lopez or Lopes? Remind me.
Lopes.
It is Lopes. Okay, Diego Lopes taking on Gavin Tucker. Lopes, the 28-year-old out of Brazil, 21-6 with 19 finishes, 11 of them submissions. Looking to get back in the win column after dropping a unanimous decision loss to Movsar Ivloyev back in May. He will be taking on Gavin Governor Tucker, the 37-year-old out of Newfoundland, Canada, 13-2 as a professional with 10 finishes, 6 of them submissions. And he's also looking to get back in the win column after losing by knockout in round 1 to Mr. Dan 50K Ige back in March of 2021. So he is 3-2 in the UFC. His first fight in the UFC was in 2017. Did not fight in 18. Fought once in 19. Fought twice in 20 when the world blew up. And then fought once in 2021 and has not fought since. Omar, why don't you start us off? Give us your take and your pick.
The fight's going to be electric for sure. Gavin Tucker's got a pace like a motherfucker. He's coming off a really bad loss against Dan Ige. Didn't even really get started in that fight for the most part. But he's a real deal. I think he's actually really, very good. And I also think that about Diego Lopes. His performance against Movsar Evloev on what I'm pretty sure was short notice and his UFC debut was something to remember. He lost that fight. I remember that fight being pretty close, though. I can't remember now off the top of my head exactly how close, but closer than, frankly, it should have been considering all the asterisks, right? The short notice and blah, blah, blah. So I was really impressed with Diego Lopes. I definitely came away wanting to know more about Diego Lopes and seeing what he has to offer with a full training camp and a proper opponent of similar caliber. And I think we were getting that with Gavin Tucker and Diego Lopes. I do think that from what I saw, Diego Lopes is fantastically well-rounded. He is, I believe, the taller fighter of the two as well, and I think that's going to play a big part in this fight, considering how well Diego Lopes uses his striking and his range. But if it goes down to the ground, as good as Gavin Tucker is, I still have more faith in Lopes to get things done and to be able to defend himself and even reverse things. So I'm going to go with Lopes here. I think both of them are nasty. I don't know if this is going to become a finish. I'm going to go with Lopes here by decision.
Mark?
Diego Lopes is actually the favorite here, despite obviously being the less proven fighter at this level. He is minus 170. Gavin Tucker is plus 140 on the other side. 5 inches of height and a 6-inch reach advantage for Diego Lopes. So pretty big. He is significantly larger than Gavin Tucker. Gavin Tucker hasn't fought in 2.5 years, as alluded to. He had some injuries that he dealt with. He's now 37 years old. All that said, he is good. He is a guy who tapped Sung Woo Choi. He won a decision over Billy Q, which is legit. But I'm just not sure if returning from that long of a layoff at this big of a size disadvantage against a guy who we know is a dog in Diego Lopes is the right combination for a victory here. Lopes, as Omar walked you through, put on a show. In his loss to Movsar Evloev, he did lose the fight, but it was definitely a competitive fight. And it's hard for me not to roll with him here. It just feels like he got the right matchup to shine, potentially, and I am going to say that he taps Gavin Tucker out in the second round.
Hell yeah, I'm here for that shit.
Love that. Love the points you guys all made. When Diego Lopes came out against Evloev, I was super impressed by him. And yes, Tucker is very good, but the inactivity is big for me in this case. Ring rust is a real thing. So I'm also going to go Lopes, and I'll say that thank you. I'll say that he also gets him out of there by submission. I'll say he gets him out of there by submission in the third round, which would be handing Gavin Tucker his first submission loss. So there you have it.
Yeah. I almost didn't pick it, but I was like, fuck it.
Hey, the law of averages catches up to everybody. Okay, in the light heavyweight division, Dustin Jacoby taking on Kennedy Zichukwu. So Dustin, the Haniac Jacoby, the 35-year-old out of Illinois, 18-7-1, with 12 finishes, 11 of them knockouts. Looking very much to get back in the win column. After losing back-to-back fights, both by decision, to Khalil Roundtree and Mirzakhanov. Sorry about that one. Kennedy Zichukwu, his opponent, the African Savage. I didn't make that up. That is his nickname. The 31-year-old out of Dallas, Texas. 12-3 with 9 finishes, 8 of them knockouts. He's riding a 3-fight win streak coming into this weekend, looking to keep things rolling. Mark, start us off.
All right, guys. Africa is a continent. It's not a country. I don't know if you guys know that.
What?
You don't remember that comment that we got?
Oh, I remember it. I was being hella facetious just then.
Thanks. We're aware. Thanks for the heads up. Oh, man. Anyway, a little inside joke for the boys. Odds. Kennedy Nzechukwu minus 160 as the favorite. Dustin Jacoby plus 130, so pretty close. 2 inches of height, 7 inches of reach for Kennedy Nzechukwu. A lot of height and reach, huge advantages on this card. It's got to be like the number one card ever for height and reach difference, because I feel like I've been saying this for every single fight. But I like...
Dude, this is like...
fucking happen
How
every
many times
week?
in a row? Oh. Come back.
Well, we can't leave. We have to let it fully upload.
It'll upload. Just leave. Okay, bye.
Okay. I think that Dustin Jacoby is a really great test to gauge where Nzechukwu is at right now, specifically to gauge the improvements. Let's cough that out. Specifically to gauge the improvements that he has made in his striking, because Kennedy is making notable improvements each time out, but Dustin Jacoby is a really high-level striker. To me, the question becomes maybe whether Kennedy's improvements in the wrestling could actually be a factor in this fight. Could he take Jacoby down to avoid the striking, or will he be comfortable there? I don't know. I'm very intrigued to see what route Nzechukwu decides to take. I do think this will take place mostly on the feet. I think Jacoby will probably be winning more moment to moment just by virtue of being the more skilled kickboxer. But, man, that 7-inch reach advantage is a lot, and it may be something that allows a few big shots to land for Kennedy that kind of changes things in these exchanges. So I could see a real close fight here, even a fight where we end up debating the winner. I feel like Dustin Jacoby ends up in fights like that at times. I don't know who I want to take. I'm going to say Nzechukwu split decision.
You think it goes to the scorecards, huh? Take it away.
Yeah, I've really been into the performances of Kennedy and Nzechukwu as of late. Justin Jacoby is always a gamer, always down to fight. Is definitely somebody who you can't count out throughout an entire fight, regardless of who's winning, on the scorecards or not. I just think Nzechukwu has found something. He seems like he's in a real level of comfort right now. It seems like the shots are coming easier to him. He seems to be flowing a lot better. Jacoby's, at least when we compare their comfort level, it doesn't seem like Jacoby has that same comfort, for lack of a better word. I can't really think of anything else to say, but Nzechukwu's just looked really good, man, and I'm pretty sold on his last few performances. They've been against guys, who we could argue, their level and whatever else, and Ian Cutelaba and Carl Roberson and Devin Clark and all that stuff. But the reality is, even in those fights, just looking at Nzechukwu by himself, he looked good. He looked like he had a real handle on his skills. So I have more confidence in him at this point. I picked Justin Jacoby in his last fight. It did not go my way, so I'm going to stick with Nzechukwu in this one. And I think he ends up finishing him. I think that Jacoby fights a little too dirty, a little too messy for something crazy not to land from either one of them. So I'm going to go Nzechukwu by KO here, round 2.
Yeah, this is a very, very tough fight to pick. Both guys are big strikers. They both have only been knocked out once themselves, but I do feel like this is not going to go the distance, and it's just going to be a matter of who hurts who first. And I'm going to roll the dice with the guy who's on the winning streak, and I'm going to say that he keeps it going. Also, obviously, his size advantages are going to play a big part, or could play a big part. So I'll say Zachukwu catches Jacoby first and gets him out of there. I'll say in the second round. All right, co-main event time. Jessica Andrade taking on Tatiana Suarez. So, Jessica Bate-Estaca Andrade, the 31-year-old out of Prana, Brazil, 24-11 as a pro, with 17 finishes, 9 of them knockouts. She has found herself on the losing end of 2 consecutive bouts, looking to get back in the win column, and she will be sitting across from the rising star Tatiana Suarez, 32 years old, out of Covina, California, undefeated, 9-0, with 6 finishes, 4 of them submissions. Most recently, guillotining Montana De La Rosa back in February of this year. Mark, I'll let you go first, since you have seemed in the past to be on the Suarez train here. What are you thinking? Taking on the living legend here, the active, somewhat of a legend, Jessica Andrade.
Yeah, the bookies are on the train as well. Suarez is minus 380. Jessica Andrade is plus 280. 4 inches of height and 4 inches of reach for Suarez. And, God, I love Jessica Andrade, but this is just not the opponent to be stepping in against when you've just lost 2 in a row. Tatiana Suarez is great. I mean, she is really, really, really good. She's undefeated. She's 9-0. She will wrestle you into dust. She's nasty and looking for finishes on the ground, whether it's with strikes or submissions. And as much as Andrade is, like a little tank, I just don't think she's going to be able to resist what Tatiana Suarez brings to the table. I think the best bet for Andrade is probably to try to play a super in-and-out speed game and just connect on something flush. But if that doesn't happen early, it can only work for so long without Suarez finding a way to get a hold of her. And I think Suarez will, and I think she finishes Jessica again, unfortunately. I will say round 2 subs, Tatiana Suarez.
Omar?
I think this is probably the worst matchup that Jessica Andrade could have found herself in. Trying to come back and get a win. Tatiana Suarez seems like she was tailor-made to beat somebody like a Jessica Andrade, right? Physicality between the two of them, and Andrade is a fucking solid woman. That girl is all muscle. I can tell you that from experience. She is one of the hardest human beings I have ever laid my hands on. With all that being said,
tell the people who are
Tatiana
listening
Suarez
how you know
is true.
this, because it's out of context. It sounds a little creepy.
Oh. Sure. So I went to the UFC Expo a couple years ago now. I think it was 2020. Actually, no. It was 2022. It was 2022.
I was saying
summer of 2022. Wife and I went over there and we did a meet and greet with a couple of different fighters throughout the weekend, and Jessica Andrade was one of them. She gave me and the wife a hug, and in that hug, I felt, like I said, probably one of the most solid human beings I've ever laid my hands on. It was surprising. I did not expect her to just be that strong in a cordial hug. Tatiana Suarez, however, is a beast, man, and she's tall. She is very, very strong in her own right, and the girl knows how to wrestle and wrestle at an elite level. I don't see it, man. I don't see how Jessica Andrade wins this fight in any stretch of the imagination. It's very possible she can land something somewhere along the line, puncher's chance, if you will. But I think this fight is made specifically for Tatiana Suarez to rise and really to shine at this point and really get her on the way to gold. So I'm going to go with Tatiana Suarez here, and I think she does finish her, man. I'm going to go with submission round 2.
Let's go. Yeah, I agree. We are in unison here. I'm going to take the rising star, Tatiana Suarez, also by submission. And I'll say mid-round 2. Mid-round 2. I was either going to say end of round 1, she might get her in trouble. But then I think Andrade might survive. And then mid-round 2, we'll see Suarez do what she does best. I think she's gonna bully Andrade down to the mat and go to work. And we're going to get at her. She's going to find a tap. Okay, main event time. UFC Fight Night. Sandhagen versus Font. Corey the Sandman Sandhagen. By the way, bantamweight bout of some consequence here. Corey Sandhagen, the 31-year-old out of Aurora, Colorado. 16-4 with 10 finishes, 7 of them knockouts. Coming off back-to-back wins over Yadong Song and Marlon Chito Vera back in March of this year. Rob Font, the 36-year-old out of Boston, Massachusetts, 20-6 with 13 finishes, 9 of them knockouts. Coming off of a knockout victory over Adrian Yanez back in April. Omar, the floor is yours first. Give us your take and your pick of Corey Sandhagen versus Rob Font.
Man, this is such a good fight. I'm a big fan of Rob Font. I'm a big fan of Corey Sandhagen. Rob Font's style of fighting is a very high-paced, very energetic way of fighting. He likes to stay on the outside. He likes to box. He likes to throw his kicks when available. But he's trying to piece you up, and he's trying not to get hit at the same time. Doesn't always work as perfectly, but that is the goal. Corey Sandhagen is really the type of fighter to try and lay a lot of traps. Very good at kind of adjusting on the fly to different situations and using his well-rounded skill set to kind of be at an advantage no matter where he is. Obviously, that gets more difficult as the opponents get more difficult. I just think he's been in there with overall better talent that it is difficult for me to think that he is going to lose against Rob Font. And I say that, again, as a very big fan of Rob Font. I think he's a very, very good fighter. I just think this is one of those moments where I think Corey Sandhagen is just a level above. I'd be very down to see Rob Font prove me wrong. I just don't really see it. Corey Sandhagen is like I said, very well-rounded, trains with a ton of killers. I don't know if you guys saw the picture of him training with a bunch of guys, but like he's training with Matt Brown right now, TJ Dillashaw, Brandon Thatch from way back when, Drew Dober, Neil Magny, Curtis Blades. I mean, he's got a murderer's row of guys that he's training with right now, on top of the fact that I already thought he was very good. And if you look at a lot of the fights that he's won in dramatic fashion, these are all fights where he lays traps and guys walk right into them. And Rob Font, I think, can sometimes get on his bike a little bit too much where he may be kind of an autopilot kind of mode. And I think against somebody like Corey Sandhagen, who's consistently making reads and adjusting and calculating, I just think he runs into something stupid somewhere along the line. So I'm going to go with Corey Sandhagen here. I think he gets him out in the 4th round TKO.
I'll go next. I will also be going with Corey Sandhagen. Props to Rob Font for stepping in on short notice. The guy is a gamer, super talented, and his record reflects that. I mean, 20-6, my God. I just think that Corey is the more cerebral fighter, the more lethal fighter overall. I love what you said, Omar. Yes, I agree. I think Corey does like to lay traps. Think of that flying knee that he landed on Frankie Edgar. I think he's going to punish Rob Font, man. But Rob Font is also a super durable guy. So for that reason, I'll say that Rob Font gets to the end of the 5th round, and we see Corey Sandhagen get his hand raised by a unanimous decision on the judges' scorecards. Mark, bring us home, buddy.
All right, Corey is favored at -330. Rob Font is plus 250. 3 inches of height for Corey, but 1.5 inches in the reach department for Rob Font. Of course, we were supposed to see Corey versus Umar Nurmagomedov here, which would have been really interesting, but Rob Font is definitely a quality replacement that we got. So thanks for that to him. He looked fantastic taking out Adrian Yanez in his last fight. But to maybe put it a little more bluntly than I guess you guys did, I just don't think he's on the same level as Corey Sandhagen. I'm not saying Corey's going to run him over or anything because Rob Font is tough as hell. But I just think Corey's better everywhere. I think he's the cleaner and sharper striker. The kicks will be a weapon for him. The clinch work, knees in the clinch, elbows. And even through all that, if Rob Font's boxing, specifically his jab, is causing Corey any problems, then I think Corey can look for the takedown. We saw him show off the wrestling against Song Yadong. I think we may see him go that route at times again here, and I'm going to roll with him. My question is really just whether I think he can get the finish. Torn on that, but Font is a tough dude. So I will just say it is either going to be a very clear 49-46 or a shutout 50-45 in favor of Corey Sandhagen.
Nice. Yep. All right, boys, we did it. There you go, folks. We gave you some thoughts and picks for every single fight on this Fight Night card. Which is, by the way, this is a nice Fight Night card.
So, yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I didn't even debate it when I saw the card. I was like, fuck, I guess we're previewing this whole thing.
Yeah.
That was a long episode.
It's a long one. Do you guys, it's 1:45. Do you want a trivia question or no?
Fuck it. How long could it take?
Okay.
Do it. I feel like we've missed trivia for a minute now.
The fans are dying for the trivia.
They're dying for the trivia. The comments keep pouring in. We want more trivia. The South Africans, man, they've been loud for the trivia. Okay. Amanda Serrano, who just signed with the PFL to fight in mixed martial arts. As Omar alluded to, she has 3 MMA fights, pro fights. Give me the number. We're going to do this Price is Right style. So closest without going over. Give me the number that is her total fight time.
Jeez. Omar probably looked at it. He was talking about the record.
Yeah, I
remember you said there was 2 subs, so I don't know what round they were in, but that's a bit of a clue.
Yeah. I'm going to go with 17 minutes.
I'm going to go with 16.
You fucking bitch.
The answer is 10 minutes and 23 seconds total fight time for Amanda Serrano.
Oh, shit.
Both of those submissions
Wasn't the fucking first fight that she had a draw?
Yeah, it was 5
No,
minutes.
she had a draw. Her first fight was a draw.
What do you mean it's
my
5
bad.
minutes?
It's
Oh, my
15
bad.
minutes, Mike.
You're right. Hold on.
What the smooth hell?
This fucking guy thought they called it a draw after 1 round.
Wait.
That was really close. We're going to stop it right here. Thanks.
Okay. The answer then is
Jesus Christ.
20 minutes and 23 seconds.
Yes. You definitely just looked at Sherdog and added up the 3 times listed because it says 5-minute mark of round 3, but you just took the
Oh, I see what he did. I see what he did.
Oh, you're so right. You got me.
man.
Jesus
You got me good.
Christ.
Oh,
times.
God.
Good times.
All right, boys. Well, we've done it again. Episode 105 of And New MMA Show is in the books. It's in the logs. One of these days, we're going to have a show with 0 technical difficulties, and it's going to feel like we hit the fucking Mega Millions.
Yeah. Let's hold our breath for that one.
Or we could just actually hit the Mega Millions. one of you guys want to do that and shoot your boy like a couple %.
That'd be cool.
There's a thought.
Likewise, ditto. Folks, enjoy the fights this weekend. PFL playoff action and UFC Fight Night. Sandhagen versus Font. Fun cards here. We can't wait to talk about them next week. Gentlemen, any parting shots? Words of wisdom?
Sleep tight, bitches. I know I will.
Yeah, man.
Train yourselves. Get into Muay Thai. That's all I got.
All right. Adios. Peace.
Peace.